welcome back to a podcast about movies. A day later than planned, but we are here finally talking about the Rocky franchise. All 10 movies. Yes, that's right, 10 movies.
We'll explain.
We'll explain. But yeah, no, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm joined as always by Austin. Austin, how's it going?
Oh, good, man. Yeah, I'm happy to be here talking about a franchise that the movies, these are movies I know it's cliche to say I grew up on them, but, were movies that definitely played on, TBS and TNT and cable like all the time. So, I mean, I watched them pretty much every time they came on. It's one of those things I could quote the movies back and forth. I've played plenty of trivia matches about them as well. I'm even doing another on Henry's channel. We're gonna do a war room all about with like Rocky questions. So
Nice.
and he knows I'm a big fan. So I'm a big fan of this franchise. I'm always happy to talk about it. How about you? What's your history with this franchise?
So I did not grow up on these movies.
Okay.
I was very late to these movies actually. I'd seen Rocky because it's like who hasn't seen Rocky at least.
Sure.
But the sequels, I for whatever reason just never watched them. Watched them all for the first time fairly recently within the last few years, and then the last couple of weeks rewatched them for the first time since, and it was quite enjoyable for the most part.
Sure.
So yeah, no, it was really exciting. There were some things that I picked up on watching the franchise like all together basically, because it was like within the last several days that I rewatched them all. So it was a lot of fun.
And it's weird when you watch them back to back because each one starts with like a recap of the previous movie, which is what they used to do back in the day. For anybody who goes back and watches it and thinks it's weird, it's just because Friday the 13th would sometimes do something similar with a lot of those movies. It's because, in the 80s, especially even the late 70s, when they started doing these projects, video stores weren't as prevalent until about the mid 80s, so and they weren't on cable as often. So it's like if you were just going to the theater, you may not have rewatched it since the other one, or seen it on TV or had the videotape or what have you. So a lot of times they would recap the last bit of the few minutes before they'd start up the new one. So it's always interesting to watch that, especially if you watch them back to back and you're like, well, should I just fast forward because I just watched this a minute ago? So 5 minutes of runtime is just the other movie, but it's still fun. I kind of miss those days where they just were like, "Hey, previously on the Rocky franchise,"
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of makes sense because there was like 3 years between each of these movies.
Yeah.
4. There were about 3 years in between. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind them doing the recap, but watching them back to back, it was like, all right, how long does this go on?
We'll just fast forward a little bit through that, and let's get to the now playing on the Rocky franchise current events.
Which is it kind of adds to the runtime, but if some of these, like especially 3 and 4, were just over 90 minutes.
Oh, I mean they're quick. They're real quick. Oh yeah, you could and cable companies could actually just play them in like a 2-hour slot, and you get it done, and they wouldn't even have to edit the movies because 95 minutes with 20 minutes of commercials and you're good to go. So those played a lot. I remember 2, 3, and 4 were the ones that played the most that I saw on cable a lot growing up. Were 2, 3, and 4. 5 occasionally. And then the original one wouldn't play as often. I don't know why, but I think just because it wasn't as like one of those movies you could just jump in and out of, kind of like the 2, 3, and 4. I feel like because I'll tell you one thing. My rewatches for this, I didn't rewatch a ton because I know these movies just so well that I didn't really need to. But I rewatched the original because I saw it pop up on Netflix, and I just it's one of the ones that. It's a great movie. I just don't sit down and watch it as much because I think it's it's a little heavier, it's a little darker, it's not as bouncy for another word for it as like 3 and 4 are. And then I rewatched my Rocky 4 director's cut that I've been a big fan of just to kind of tap into that a little bit. And then we both went and saw Creed 3. So that'll be freshest one in there. But
and I do want to mention, I think, obviously these are movies about boxing, But I really appreciated that the first two were more about the character than the sport. So where Rocky 3 and 4 were definitely, I feel like, and even later on, were more boxing heavy.
Sure.
I really appreciated that we really got to know Rocky and Adrian and Mickey and all these characters.
Well, 3 and 4 have multiple fights, which is and the montages and things, and they didn't really get heavy on that till 3, 4, even 5 to a degree has a couple here and there. The first one, I mean, you go back and watch it, and hey, Jordan, he's listening while he's working. I appreciate that. But yeah, it has like the opening, little dingy church fight, and then nothing till the end, and it's not, there's not a whole lot going on. And then 2 has a little bit more ramped up a little bit, but 3 is very heavy on it because you get the montage of him, defending the title, and then you got the wrestling match, and then you got the first match with Lang, then you got the final match with Lang. 4 has like the Apollo match, and then it has 2 training montages and the finale with Rock. I mean, they really go heavy on it. Even in Rocky 5, you got Tommy Gunn having his own little, fight montage and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, they definitely found kind of the formula, the equation to kind of put the Rocky films together. But you go back and watch the first one, and it's very much a character study. And I guess it's a good place to kind of jump in. We'll just jump in on the first one. Because here we don't do like rankings.
Right.
Here we're just going to talk about the franchise literally in order. And talk about the one that started it all, Rocky. Yeah, it's definitely a character piece. It's just about this guy. And it's a guy that I think what makes this movie so relatable all these years later is you don't necessarily have to be a boxer to relate to him. You could be any person that's feel like you're stuck in life, not fulfilling your potential, or you're just stuck in a crummy situation with a bad job, or, you've never had a great relationship or anything. Feel like you're just kind of spinning your wheels, and you can insert that to Rocky's story, no matter what you are, or what you're dealing with. Is a lot of the stuff he says throughout the movie, you take the boxing aspect out of it, and it's just a dude who's down on his luck and just having a crummy life. I mean, that's what the movie really is. He just happens to be a boxer, and that's his profession,
And I think Sylvester Stallone does a good job of capturing that. I feel like some people might, get a little annoyed at the accent or whatever, like just the way he talks. Like I was rewatching, I was like, man, if I was just talking to that guy on the street or something, I'd be like, all right, let's. But I guess the Italian thing, and
he sounds like a punchy kind of a loser. I mean, he just does, but that's kind of what the character is. He's this dude who's been hit in the head a lot, and he doesn't have a lot of goals in life, realistically. And I don't think he's particularly educated, because we find out in Rocky 2 he doesn't even really know how to read very well. He probably didn't even graduate from high school. I'm just guessing a lot of these things are kind of just alluded to. But I would imagine he probably started boxing at a pretty early age. We hear that he's just turned 30, and he's been fighting for 10 years. So he started at 20. I'd imagine he probably dropped out of school, maybe started to train to be a boxer, maybe had his first fight at 20, maybe something like that. But I'd imagine, he didn't have that much education. We don't know much about his family. We never see parents or siblings or anything like that. Again, a few lines here and there, but nothing really heavy. He's just this kind of lone dude who all he has is the fact that he's this boxer who can take a hit, and has a good jaw, and that's all he's ever known how to do. As he tells Adrian, why are you a fighter? Because I can't sing or dance. My dad said you didn't have the brains, so you got to use your body. That's what my old man told me, and it definitely relates. So it's a good story.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Adrian, because I like that relationship, and I like where it starts here and like how it progresses throughout the movies, where she doesn't have much confidence in herself, and Rocky kind of brings that out of her, which I really appreciate. I think it's one of the best like on screen relationships in all of movies. I mean, and if this was the only movie in the franchise, I would still say that.
Yeah, it would still work, even as this biopic sort of this romance. There's definitely a romance at the center of it. The reason they work so well together is and they even talk about Paulie, rewatching him, I forgot about some of the sequences where he asked, like, "Why are you dating my sister? Like, what do you see in her?" And he's like, "Well, she's got gaps and I've got gaps, and I think we just mesh together." And if you think about it, Adrian's story is very similar. She's, it's her and her brother Paulie, who again we don't see really much of parents or other family. It's just them. We don't really know their circumstances, but it kind of feels like they grew up together and they kind of only have each other. That she has never really broken out of her shell and really gone off to kind of be her own woman. She's kind of similar to Rocky in that she kind of feels like she's just spinning her wheels working this job at this pet shop, which we know she's been working there for a while because Rocky says, "I've been coming in every day since you opened and telling you a joke or saying something." He comes in every day, like just walking the streets of Philadelphia, and has never really gotten anywhere with her, but they're at least familiar with each other. And yeah, Paulie kind of is the breadwinner of the family, and I think it's his house, but she we also find out she's almost close to 30. She's never really had a meaningful relationship. Paulie thinks she should have, probably been married and had kids by now, basically, and should have done something. She says she's dried up and broken and all this stuff. I mean, he's really mean to her, obviously. Yeah. We definitely don't like Paulie. Like, Paulie's not a good dude in this movie. Like, I mean, later on in the franchise, he kind of becomes lovable in that, like, there's a good quote I always go back to from American Reunion when they talk about Stifler and how they always say that Stifler, he's a dick, but he's our dick. Like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, Paulie's a dick, but he's kind of our dick, like, but at the end, he'll always like kind of have your back if you treat him like family, in the end, like, but he's that asshole who you kind of have to tell to shut up every now and then and just knock off being a dick. But yeah, I mean,
and he kind of realizes that later on in one of the later movies, like, I was horrible to her. And I can't fix that.
Well, and even after, not to jump ahead too much, but in Rocky Balboa, when they're visiting the grave and he breaks down and is like, he starts crying. He goes, "You treated her good and I treated her bad. Like, and I can't change that. Like, I can't, no matter what I did later in life, I treated her like garbage and I feel bad for that." And I had to realize that she was the only one who ever kind of stuck with me, even through all the stuff, and they kept dragging him along, and he's always living with them and stuff. He's always kind of there.
Yeah.
But he's still a good performance. I mean, Burt Young was even nominated for Oscar for this movie. Pretty much everybody was. Shire, Burt Young, Burgess Meredith, they were all nominated for performances. So none of them won. They won Best Picture, but none of them won any of the performances.
Yeah, won. So it was nominated for 10 awards overall, won 3 of them, Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Editing.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, some of these training sequences, and like just in all the movies, like all the training sequences are really well done.
Yeah. No, and for the budget that they had, Jacob, which was like nothing. I mean, this movie was made for damn near nothing. I mean, a complete shoestring budget. There's a famous story where the one scene after he goes to the arena to kind of just stand in the ring and look at the posters and things like that, and he comes back and it's the whole "go the distance" speech, sitting on the bed. They had no money. They had one take. They said, we have enough film for you to do one take, and we shouldn't even do the scene. We need to save the film for something else. And he said, "I got to do the scene. It's critical. Like, it's critical to the script, to the character." And they said, "You got one take. You got to nail it." And Stallone had to nail it, because that was the take that was going to be in the movie. And he nails it. I mean, he really does. And he nails it mainly because it's his script. He wrote the damn thing. He is the character. And famously, the studio didn't even want him to be the title character. They wanted other actors. There was a lot of other actors considered. They did not want him. They wanted his script. They were going to pay him for his script. We'll pay you to kind of be a consultant on the character, whatever, but we didn't want you. We want an actor. You're not an actor. Like, we want somebody who can act. And then he just fought hard and hard and hard and just said, this is my character. I am Rocky, because he was a struggling writer at that point. He was a struggling actor. His real life story is very similar to the story of the movie, in that he was a totally struggling dude, just like Rocky, which is why I think he's kind of perfect for this character, because a lot of the scenes of frustration, even the scene where he yells at Mickey when Mickey's going back down the stairs and leaving his apartment, and he finally just kind of blows up and vents his frustrations, was completely improvised. It was completely like he just had in the script that Rocky gets mad and starts yelling, and a lot of the stuff that he says is very similar to his real life. If you listen to it, it's just, "Oh, you want to come out? My place stinks. It all stinks. What about my shot? What about my prime? I never had a prime. You had a prime. I didn't have nothing. I asked you for help. You didn't give me nothing." It feels very real. Very something from the heart. Where Stallone himself was near 30 years old and had never felt like he'd never gotten a shot. This was his only shot, so he had to take it. But yeah, I mean, that's why the movie works so well, is again, anybody can relate to the Rocky story and kind of put yourself in his shoes and his frustrations.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from the boxing aspect, because I think the boxing aspect is absolutely really good. I think Carl Weathers as Apollo
He's
Creed,
phenomenal.
again,
He's so good. So
I
good.
think that could have been a fifth acting nomination for this movie, but having 3 supporting nominations for this, I guess, was a little too much.
It wasn't for the Godfather. Godfather had 3 supporting nominations all in the same year,
right?
So that's not unprecedented. Yeah,
but yeah, and I liked his growth as a character in these movies too. Like he comes off as this kind of cocky champion, which I guess rightfully so. Like he's regarded as like
he's undefeated.
Undefeated,
he's undefeated, and he has every right to be a cocky champion. Nobody's beaten him. Nobody's even knocked him down. Apparently, that's a big part of it. When Rocky knocks him down in the first, it's a big deal. He never even been knocked down, so that's a big deal. I mean, he's a true champion's champion. Like he is the best of the best, and he has every right to think that this lunkhead from Philadelphia, what kind of chances he have? There's that great scene where Duke is watching the news report with Rocky famously like punching the meat, and while he's doing that and actually looking at this dude, Apollo's on the phone saying, "Get my barber to Philadelphia." Let's run some radio ads in the Midwest. He's not paying any attention to it. He's just concerned with making money and making it the biggest, boxing event he can make it. And I mean, but again, rightfully so. Why should he think this dude has any chance on the planet against him? I mean, he thinks he's going to knock him out within a couple of rounds.
I mean, he can't pick him.
Yeah, he picked him out just for the name, for the background. Pluck this dude. He has no idea. He has no footage of him to look at. Nothing, and he doesn't care. It's like all he knows is he's a southpaw. Oh well, but yeah, he has every right to think that. But yeah, Carl Weathers is great. Every line he delivers is charismatic. His back and forth. He has a natural charisma that I think is fantastic for this character. That only expands, throughout the movies. And no, he's fantastic. He steals every scene he's in. He's great.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they went, Rocky goes the distance, but he doesn't win.
No, he doesn't win. As he shouldn't, I think, for this.
Yeah.
I don't think he should. I think it's the right decision to have him go the distance, get his licks in. He gets shots in. Apollo's beat up at the end of the thing. He doesn't come out unscathed. He's got broken ribs. He's bloody. He's been knocked down for the first time in his career. He's definitely taken down a peg. But I mean, Apollo is the true champion. He should win this fight, all realistically, and he dominates the fight essentially. Even in Rocky 2, he dominates the fight for the most part. And he's ready, which we'll talk about. But yeah,
which is funny because at the end of this fight, it's like there's not going to be a rematch. There's going to be no rematch. And then after the recap, and the beginning, like meet me back in the ring. Where's my rematch?
Immediately in the hospital. Let's get up and finish this right now. I'll finish it anytime, anywhere. Let's go.
I like when sequels do this, especially when they're not too far apart.
Sure.
Where they pick up like immediately where the first one picked off. Like there's some movies where it doesn't work, but this one I think it was a perfect choice. Just to kind of pick up. And again, this one is more about Rocky growing as a person, Rocky and Adrian growing as a couple. Rocky's not concerned with a rematch because he kind of proved what he needed to prove. He could hang with the champion, and it wasn't. I think what Apollo concern was that he didn't win. Or Rocky didn't.
What Apollo says is, "Man, I won, but I didn't beat him.
Yeah,
I won, but I didn't beat him." And that's that's a true champion's take. If you won a thing, but you did not put him down, you did not put him down for the 10 count. He did not beat him definitively. When he's getting those letters saying, you carried him for how much did you get paid to carry that bum? You didn't really knock him out. The whole thing was fixed. You got, basically you got paid. You're a fraud champion. And we see the fire. You can see the difference when those little bits, when you see his training, when he's hitting the bag and he's doing all this stuff, there's a fire in Apollo in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell he's like, no, and he says, no, this time I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to put you down in like 2-3 rounds. And I'm going to prove, how much truly better I am than you. I'm gonna put you down this. There's no, you notice even his entrance, later. There's no theatrics like there was in the first one. With him riding the boat, to the ring like in the first one. No, he goes straight to the ring. He's warming up. He's just ready to go, and he's ready to kill him. And I think that's a great character progression. It gives him a new motivation. In this one, and Rocky, yeah, like you said, he did what he wanted to do. He went the distance with the champion, and he's ready, perfectly happy now that he has a wife that he loves and somebody cares about. Being a family man. He wants to be a family man. Just get a regular job and just quit getting hit in the head, which I don't blame him. He's probably been getting hit in the head for 10 years. He's ready to get that up. And he is a fighter at heart, but I think he's ready to move on and be a family man. But
now he's got something else to fight for. He's got a wife and a kid on the way.
And a kid on the way. Yeah. And he doesn't want to, get hit in the head for a living when he's got a kid on the way. He wants to get a regular job. But obviously that doesn't always pay the bills. And when you can't read and you don't have a high school education, that's a little difficult to do outside of manual labor.
And I think the fact that him not being able to read and him learning to read, him reading to Adrian, and then the stuff later on when, spoilers for this over 40-year-old movie. I haven't seen it by now.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil all the Rocky movies, so if you haven't seen them, it is what it is.
We will be spoiling Creed 3 as well. We will give that a warning.
We'll give you an extra spoiler warning for Creed 3, but everything before that, we're gonna be open, just talking about the movie. So yeah.
And when she's in a coma and he's reading to her, and he's writing to her, writing. I don't know if it was like a poem or a letter. I don't know what he would classify it.
Well, there's one he was. In one scene, he was reading a book. The other one, he wrote her a poem.
Yeah,
his own poem, and he was writing poetry for her. And the other one, he was just reading a book, like he was doing in bed. He's just reading a story.
Yeah. And I thought that stuff was great. It added this is a real guy. Like you said with Rocky, he's a relatable character because there are some adults out there that don't know how to read, and it is a struggle. And there's just so much that this character has that is relatable. And I'll tell you, I started tearing up a little bit because even though I sort of knew it was coming because I had seen it before, but when he's writing that poem and reading it to her, that's emotional. And at that point, nothing else mattered. He had already agreed to the rematch because Apollo, he was hurling these insults and stuff, and so he had agreed to it, but at this point, nothing mattered other than Adrian. And he didn't, at this point, the baby had been born premature. It was a month early. Mm-hmm. All that, and he wanted to wait to meet the baby with Adrian, which I appreciated because it was about Adrian making sure she was okay. Mm-hmm. Because they needed money, so she was back at the pet store, and maybe the stress of Rocky agreeing to this fight, even though he does have all these, this head injuries, that stress can add up. So I thought that was beautiful.
Who doesn't get goosebumps to this day when she wakes up and they've got the baby, and she says, "I want you to do one thing for me," and she goes, "Come here," and he goes, "When?" And they hit the music.
It's so good.
Oh, it's so good. And he gets this look in his eyes, and Mickey goes, "What are we waiting for? Let's go." and he finally has that fire back, ready to go. And they hit the training montage. It's the perfect time to hit the training montage and see it. And now that he has Adrian's blessing to do it, it's such a great moment. Who does not get goosebumps when it happens? It's so great. It's really good.
And that baby had a full head of hair.
Oh
my goodness!
Yeah. No, that baby. Well, also it could have been a couple weeks since
right. Yeah, we don't know how long she was
in a coma exactly. Yeah. We knew that he started his training and had 10 weeks or something before the fight. So I don't know. It could have been a week or two, whatever it was. But yeah, and then that training montage is great. It's that they upped the budget. You can tell in the actual choreography for the rematch. The rematch is definitely shot, much, much better. There's a lot more footage. It's a lot tighter, a little bit different music. But yeah, it's really, really good. And yeah. I mean, Apollo's got that fire, man. He's knocking him down within those first couple of rounds real quick. I mean, Mickey even said he's going to try to kill you quick, so you just got to survive these first couple of rounds. And he wins most of the rounds. I mean, by the end of the fight, I mean, he's winning. It's not a split decision. He is winning. I mean, Stu Nahan, and can I just give props to Stu Nahan, one of the guys who does a lot of the commentary for all these movies. He's great. Like I wish I could have watched some actual fights with his commentary. He's fantastic. But he's like, I got Apollo well ahead. Like all he's got to do is stay away, and he's going to retain the title. But it's like, no, I want to put this dude down. With a KO, but that's where he gets arrogant. He's still got that arrogance in him where
arrogance and pride.
He can't just beat him for 15 rounds definitively. He's got to put him down, and he can't stay away. So, but yeah, I mean, Rocky, gets the win after the double knockdown and has one of those great movie moments, the Yo Adrian, I did it, holding up the thing where he's bloody and disgusting, but he did it, and it's great. And yeah, he should win the rematch. I agree. The decision in the first movie of him not winning is perfect, and then him actually getting the win, is great in this one as well. So and it leads us into, I guess, the perfect time to lead us into Rocky 3. Which, a couple years later, we see Rocky. He's the champ, and we get a little montage at the beginning of him defending the title, I believe 10 times. Defending and being an actual reigning champion, becoming a star, becoming rich, having money, which he's never had before. And, we see a little bit of that in Rocky 2, his mismanagement of money. Maybe he learned something, from one movie to another about maybe getting an accountant and, somebody to kind of watch your finances so you can actually enjoy that money. But yeah, he's kind of living the high life. But at the same time, Jacob, he gets soft.
Yeah.
He loses that eye of the tiger as becoming a main theme, in Rocky 3 with the song. And he starts to get a little content, and he starts to lose that killer's edge, that hunger to win. And we see that in a young Clubber Lang, Mr. T, who we see him. He's got that fire and that hunger. And we don't learn much about his background, but we can imagine maybe he was a poor kid in Chicago, similar to Rocky. Maybe he was a guy who kind of fought where he was today. He lives alone. We don't see a lot of his colleagues and things, and he's got that fire to be the champion, to be the best. And he trains like a true underdog. He trains like a guy who's got that killer instinct. And I think it's a cool little reversal of, Rocky's the content champion now, and we got this new guy with that killer instinct.
Yeah, and I like that they don't build this up to be like the only match we're going to see between them is going to be the final fight.
Yeah,
it's the like the middle of the movie where they fight. And Rocky loses because either he's not ready, or he's also got some other things on his mind because the stuff with Mickey going on, who later on does end up passing away. Because he's also just really old. But
he's old and he had a heart attack. I mean, that's not.
I mean, I can't imagine having to defend your title while you're the guy who's been in your corner for not only the 2 matches with Apollo, but also all 10 title defenses, which we learn are handpicked easy opponents to kind of save Rocky's image or whatever. Because he's not. I don't think the win against Apollo was a fluke. Like he won that match.
No,
like in Rocky, he's like the underdog fighter. In Rocky 2, I think he's like the determined fighter. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this. And then in Rocky 3, he's a smart fighter.
Yeah.
As we'll see later on in the movie, he gets to that point. But yeah, he loses, and which I think is a smart decision. Like, you can't just have him win everything all the time. It's gonna be like, oh well, here's another Rocky movie where he wins. Like, he becomes vulnerable, and now he's without Mickey. So what does he do? Well, guess who comes back?
Yeah, Apollo and
Apollo Creed, and who I think he's got that respect now.
Yeah,
after that fight, obviously. Like,
well, no, and he. And even when he's doing the commentary for the match where Rocky loses, they ask him about the fight, who's got the edge, and he's like, well, I think Clubber's got the strength and the fact that he's younger and things like that. But he's like, Rocky's got the hardest head and he's got a lot of heart, and obviously beat me, and he's like, he's a good champion, and he sees that, and he has that respect. He's like, he survived my beatings I put on him, and he still beat me. He beat me fair and square, and like, he's got that respect that a good champion has for another champion, and he. They're not really like friends yet, as we'll see, but he has that respect. And when he sees Clubber being disrespectful to him, when Apollo tries to go over there and shake his hand and say hello, when he goes in the ring, he's just like, get out my face, you has been, washed up Creed, whatever. He's just like, Rocky doesn't do that to him. So, Rocky treats him with respect and just do us a favor and drop this chump. You know what I mean? Like, he obviously he's disrespectful. He doesn't like people like that. But maybe he sees a little bit of himself in Clubber. I don't know, with the disrespect. I don't know. Maybe he does. And maybe he's trying to turn away from that. Maybe. But, and maybe he's even matured as a person a little bit. But yeah, he's there to witness, the downfall and turns in, I think, a really cool turn for his character. We get a lot of Apollo in this movie, and I like that because I just love Carl Weathers as well, and his role as this trainer and manager. And they have to change up the dynamic. He's got to become a completely new fighter in this one. That other style is not going to work with Clubber. Clubber's a very strong dude who he can't take all the punches, that he could, like he could with Apollo. Clubber's just a strong dude. And he has to change his whole style, and it's great. I love the training he does with Apollo. It's a ton of fun.
It's great.
Trying to get speed, and as Paulie says, it's a little politically incorrect, but train him like a colored fighter. It's like he's got no rhythm. You can't train him like that. He ain't got no rhythm. He can't out on his toes like Apollo can and dance around and all that. But it's really fun. We were missed, by the way, as wrestling fans. We have to talk briefly about the wrestling scene with Hulk Hogan.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but before we move on to the finale of this one, because we're both wrestling guys, so we have to talk about the wrestling scene.
Yes.
But yeah, with a 1982, before he was famous Hulk Hogan, because if you remember, this was before he was really a household name. I mean,
Hulkamania was not running wild.
No, this is 2 years before he beat the Iron Sheik for the WWF title. I mean, he was not a household guy this time. And I tell you, I'd watch Thunder Lips in a wrestling match. I think he has a great character and a great personality. He cuts a good promo. He's got a ton of charisma. And yeah, it's a fun little charity fight because, in his mind, Thunder Lips is putting on a good show while beating the snot out of Rocky Balboa. He's playing the character and tossing, and yes, he's doing wrestling moves, but he's still, bumps are not not painful, Jacob. He's still suplexing him and throwing him around all over the place, and it's still hurting him. And then Rocky has to resort to his street fighting ways, to take him down, which I like, and it's a ton of fun, man. I thought it's a great sequence.
It was great, yeah. I mean, it kind of felt, I want to say unnecessary, but like I feel like if you also take it out, like it doesn't.
It doesn't change the movie that
much.
The
plot, but I'm so glad they included this because it was just as a wrestling fan, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And even in the newest Creed, there's a couple of wrestling personalities that were fun to see, or at least here. I like that they included a little bit of wrestling in the movies.
Well, and in
Hogan, not a great actor.
No, but
he's great in this.
He's great in here because he's playing a wrestler, and he is a wrestler, so he doesn't have to he's not doing dramatic acting. He's just playing bad guy wrestler, which is fine. And he's cutting promos, the ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball, and he's taunting the crowd, and he's getting heat, and it's good, it's a ton of fun. And they have a nice little match, and in true wrestling fashion, once it's over, he turns it off, he takes the picture with him. You know what I mean? In true wrestling fashion, it's like, okay, the show's over.
What were you doing? I was just giving them a show.
He's like, bro, I'm putting on a show. I'm entertaining the crowd. Like, in true wrestling fashion, I'm sports entertainment, brother. I'm putting on a show because Rocky's not going to know how to put on that kind of show, and be like over the top and entertaining like that.
Yeah.
And he respected him because Rocky put up a fight, and he earned his respect at the end, so it's great.
And has Hulk Hogan ever in WWF or WWE been referred to as nearly 7 foot and 380 pounds?
And that's a trivia question I wrote for some of my guys as to what Thunder Lips is billed as. But no, even at his peak, and I know he's actually shrunk because of his spine. At his peak, I think he was like 6'6".
Yeah,
something like that, and maybe 290, something like that. But yeah, they bill him as 7 feet, 390 pounds in this movie, which is now you kind of buy it because he's standing next to 5'6", 200-pound Rocky, Sylvester
Right.
Stallone.
Yeah.
So
There's a good height
so he
difference.
legitimately, when they do the face off, is looking at his chest, you know what I mean? And he has to look up to see his face. So you sort of buy it, you get the idea. He's much, much larger
Yeah.
than Rocky. There's a reason why we have weight classes in boxing, you know what I mean? In MMA. It's like there's a reason we have this because in real life, if Rocky tried to probably fight this guy legitimately, no matter how good of a boxer you are, if he wraps you up and throws you around like he does, he's gonna beat you up pretty good. But yeah, it's still a ton of fun, and it's a good little side. I mean, it's an entertaining movie. It's one of the things that made it fun. But yeah, jumping back to Rocky and Clubber. Yeah, the training sequences where he's moving like Apollo is a lot of fun. And I once saw a fan on a message board one time pitched their idea for an alternate Rocky 3 where Rocky still loses to Clubber, but then Apollo comes out of retirement because of the disrespect, fights Clubber, beats him with his style because his style is superior to Clubber's because he can stick and move and wear him down, thus setting up Super Fight 3 with Rocky versus Apollo 3. So I thought that was interesting. Like somebody had kind of pitched like you could have done, the finale. I mean, we find out they have another fight, behind closed doors, just at a gym, that
Right.
we find out in Creed who actually won that fight, and he says that Apollo won that fight.
Yeah. Which I loved that they didn't tell us
Yeah, they
at
don't tell us.
all.
They just start the thing, and
Yeah.
afterwards they both go home, and it actually shows him at Rocky 4, I think, coming home from that, and his face is messed up. He's got black eyes. He's banged up, and maybe Apollo put a beating on him. I don't know, or maybe they just had another knockdown, drag out fight. Who knows?
Would have been one of the greatest what ifs, or who done
Yeah.
it in
Yeah,
movies. If
I'm
Creed
glad they
hadn't been
eventually.
released.
I'm glad they eventually answered in Creed because
Yeah.
it makes sense when he brings it up. Again, jumping ahead just a little bit when he brings up, he's like, "How'd you know about that? Nobody knew about the fight." And he's like, "Well, he's my dad. He told me about it." It's like so only he went. And he goes, "Who won that fight? He did." And he doesn't lie. He could have lied and said, "I did," but he says,
Yeah.
"No, Apollo did. He was a better fighter than me. Like he just was." And so yeah, he gives him his props. But yeah, he finally changed his style. I really dig the final fight because it's not a 15 round drag out fight. He gets this new style and he puts him down in 3 rounds. I mean, it's a completely different dynamic. He gasses him out and goats him in and uses that head to take a little bit of a beating, to wear him out. But is able to put him down with a whole different style. And it's cool. It just makes it feel different. It's refreshing to not have a complete 15 round drag out fight. To have something where you have those extra fights, but they're a little bit shorter.
Yeah, and I like the little exchange between Paulie and Paul on the outside. Paul was like, "He's getting killed," and Paulie's like, "No, he's not.
He's
He's
not getting
getting
killed. He's getting
mad."
mad. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
he
he's going
fires
mad.
him
He
out
knows what
and
he's doing.
knocks him out.
Yeah, and knocks him out. So, it's a good little thing. And then he basically, we find out he pretty much retires. After that, he
For the
regains the
first
title.
time.
Yeah, retires for the first time. I think he officially this is officially his final one till this is actually his last professional fight because the rest of these are exhibitions or unsanctioned. So officially on the record, I believe his regaining the title against Clubber Lang is his final official fight because his fight with Drago is unsanctioned in Russia. So it's not it never happened on the books again,
Mm-hmm.
and then his fight against Mason Dixon and Rocky Balboa is an exhibition, much like the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Apollo Drago fight is billed as an exhibition, so it doesn't count on the record books. It's not a professional sanctioned fight. So this is actually the Rocky 3 final regaining against Clubber is his final official bout on record.
Yeah, that. And even though we get 3 more movies,
where
with
he's
Rocky.
involved. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we move into Rocky 4, which is another 3 years later. They really spaced these movies out. I didn't like this one.
You didn't like Rocky 4? Okay, I get it. I know some people don't, but I like Rocky 4.
Rushed. It felt like I don't know. Maybe it was because Dolph Lundgren wasn't. I don't know how much acting he had done to that point. I didn't like the character.
None.
Yeah,
He was a legit Shotokan karate champion. He was a bodybuilder. Yeah, he was just basically an athlete, turned actor. Yeah.
If he was like a silent boxer, kind of like Kurt Angle in Warrior, I
Yeah.
think his character works a lot more. But like when he's talking, like I don't think there's anything intimidating about him. It just, for me, it just almost sounds goofy. Like the only line I like from him is, "If he dies, he dies."
Yeah.
Okay, like it does show that he is like this.
I like the blunt thing he says to Apollo when they do the thing and his arms don't move and he just looks at him and goes, "You will lose." Like it's
Yeah,
I
that's a good one too. That's a good
I
one.
like the bluntness of it because Apollo just goes, all right. Like he just is like, okay. And no, I think he's supposed to be the silent killer because again, you have to remember English is a second language to him, so he's not going to
Yeah.
long, lengthy promos. That's why the guy that's with him does most of the talking for him, as well as Bridget Nielsen. Like they do most of the talking for him. But by the way, so you watched the theatrical cut, right? Because we got to get into this. Or did you watch both?
I watched both.
You watched both. Okay,
so I didn't like this version.
Okay, so you like the other version?
I do,
or at least a little bit more, or a little bit more.
Yeah, I did. So yeah, the Ultimate Director's Cut, which was released a couple years ago, I did. Because I felt like it got to the point. Like Drago comes in and Creed's like, I can shut this guy up.
Yeah,
this is all political, and I can do it. One of the big differences I like, because again, spoilers, Creed dies.
Yes.
Because
apparently, if you go back, they kind of spoil that in the marketing material, which I wish they wouldn't have in some of the marketing material. Like I guess you see either him go down or part of him at the funeral. Like it's weird. Like they spoil that in the marketing material, which is strange to me. I think that would have been a nice surprise in the theater.
Like, I think you can spoil that he loses, and that's the reason Rocky and Drago fight. But
him dying,
that's a big plot point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could put in a trailer him getting pummeled by Drago, and then like be like, oh, okay, so like that would be a good motivation if he gets pummeled by, maybe even paralyzed, like, or an alternate version where he's alive, but maybe he's just very, very hurt, something like that. But yeah, doing the actual death is a big step because hey, and Mickey died in the last movie, and Apollo dies in this movie. I mean, it's they're killing more legacy characters in the Scream movies right now, so I can that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think Rocky IV is just, again, I grew up with these movies, so like they were on TV all the time, and this one plays the most like a music video, montage heavy movie where there's a lot of montages, a lot of music.
That montage, that montage where he's in the car and it's all the driving. It just felt like a music video inserted into the middle of the movie.
It is. Like, it 100% is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what is this? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the actual music video shown on MTV at the time.
Yes, no,
MTV was a thing in 1985.
No, even that one doesn't work as well for me, but it's just more of him processing Apollo's death. But yeah, I do agree. You could have him doing something else, processing the death, and having a driving fast on the car, montage. It's very strange.
One of the decisions I liked better in the director's cut than this one was the funeral scene.
Oh yeah, it's much better in the director's cut.
I don't like that they had just Rocky saying something in this one, because he, essentially he and Apollo had only been friends since like the last half of the middle of Rocky 3.
Right.
So I like that in the director's cut we did see Duke, share some words, because like that's what I wanted to see more than.
Well, the main difference I like that they added in a lot of, and again, they're roughly the same runtime because I know you were a little confused by that when you first saw the runtimes.
Yeah, I was like 3 more minutes.
It's not an extended cut. It's because they take out all the robot stuff. They take out a lot of stuff.
The robot stuff was
so bad.
Stupid.
They take out all the robot stuff in the director's cut. That's all gone. They take out a lot of stuff with his kid. His kid is only in a little bit of the director's cut. They take out a lot of Bridget Nielsen in the director's cut. She's barely in that one. It's much more about the other dude who's kind of talking for him. They give Drago a few more lines and a little more screen time in the new one, even if it's just facial acting screen time. But yeah, the one thing they kind of add in is more scenes and more talk of Apollo's motivations for wanting to fight, and then the reason why he kind of dies in the ring. They do a lot more of this stuff, and this talk about the way of the warrior is like the big kind of thing about it, and the code of the warrior, and essentially that Apollo has this warrior spirit where he feels like he is losing that. He's a guy who cannot live the retired life. He has to be in the spotlight. He has to feel relevant. He feels like, he just can't be that old retired boxer. He just can't do it. So he's got to take this fight to just keep that spirit alive inside of him. And as we talk about in, like you said, Duke being added back to the funeral is critical because he talks about how the warrior's code should allow them to basically die in the way they want to die. And Apollo had that warriors thing where he wanted to die essentially on the battlefield. He wanted to die in combat, much like a Spartan warrior or something. He wanted to go out in combat in the ring in his element. And that's why he says, to Rocky, promise me as a friend, you won't stop this fight.
And you can see him struggling with that too.
No, he's just like, and Rocky's like, no, like I get what he's saying, but like, I don't want to lose you either, bro. Like you're my friend. And it's like, promise me as a friend, you won't stop this fight, because he knows that this dude has a legitimate chance of killing him. It's not really streaming anywhere, Jordan, but it's available for rent and purchase, like on Vudu and Amazon. Jordan, I own it on Vudu, so go on my Vudu. You have access to that and watch it. So it's called Rocky versus Drago. Go on my Vudu and watch it. It's well worth it because it is essentially a different cut. It's a much more serious cut. It's a much more emotional cut. It's less goofy shit in the movie. Mm-hmm. Really, there isn't a lot of goofy stuff at all. It feels more in line with the earlier movies.
Which is why I said we were talking about 10 movies instead of 9.
Yeah, because
we're talking essentially a completely different movie.
And don't get me wrong, the new cut still has the 2 training montages. It still has all that stuff. It still has the music. The Apollo and Drago fight is slightly edited more to where it's longer. Because if you watch both cuts, the first round especially is much longer. There's much more of a build up to when Drago finally takes advantage of him, and the actual second round where he goes down is longer as well. Like he mounts a little bit more of a comeback before finally getting taken down. And to all the critics out there who say, oh, why didn't the referee just stop the fight or whatever? He does. He tries to, and Drago still kills him because there's 2 different points where he tries to physically pull Drago away from Apollo to stop the fight. It's because referee's discretion. They can stop the fight if they want to. If they see a guy taking a beating, they have every discretion to pull a fighter off and stop the fight. He tries to pull him off. Drago shoves him away, and that's when he gets the final blows in that kills him. So he does try to do that even without the towel. So I mean, it's that. But I think it's a little more impactful. I love the stuff where the wife is getting lost is getting lost in the crowd, just screaming Apollo, and like how she's crying, she can't even get to him. Always breaks my heart every time I watch it. But it's much more expanded on the motivation for the fight and Apollo's reasoning for basically essentially wanting to go out in combat and die in the ring. I mean, he just doesn't want to die an old man. So you get a little bit more of that and a little bit more of Rocky's reasoning for wanting to avenge the loss, in that he also has that fighting warrior spirit that he, as a man, can't just let this sit. He can't do it. He as a friend and as a man, he can't let that sit there. He has to do what's right in his eyes.
Yeah, and we get another incredible fight at the end of this one. I think all the fights in all these movies are really good. The final fights. Yeah. I think they're really like the payoff is really good.
Always strong. Yeah. Well, and then the new fight and the new cut of the other one also takes out kind of the corniness of his final speech. The original theatrical cut where he's doing the, if I can change, you can change. Like it's very over the top and like, rah, rah America, but he still kind of does in this one. There's different camera angles and it's a little bit different edited to where it's not as like America, rah, rah. It's just him talking to the crowd, in a different pitch. And then he just leaves. They don't really hit the music. They bring back the Eye of the Tiger music. It's a little bit slightly edited differently. The ending of this one, as I've told a lot of you guys, meshes really well with Creed 2. If you watch this director's cut and then go right into Creed 2 with the opening stuff with Drago and that one, it's great. It makes for a fantastic double feature because Drago, I think they also expand in this cut a little bit more that he is being used as a pawn of the state. He is being used as propaganda. He is being used as a tool of destruction, essentially. And they treat him like a puppet. I mean, they really do, to where then when he finally says the thing where I fight for me, Yasim, Yas, for me, he's looking at the premier guy that I fight for me, not for you. Like, I'm still a fighter at heart. Like, I'm doing this for me. And then at the end, in the director's cut, you see a shot of them turning their back on him and walking away. Cut to Creed 2, and he has been exiled to Ukraine. And he has had the entire country turn his back on him, as we find out when he talks about to Rocky in the restaurant, that everybody turned his back on him. They abandoned him. He had to flee the country. And you feel bad for Drago a little bit. Like, yes, he killed Apollo. He took it in his hands, but he was also being manipulated by the state and being told to do these kind of terrible things where maybe he didn't want to do that. I have this thing in my head where this Drago story I've kind of made up in my head that maybe he admired guys like Rocky and Apollo. Maybe he watched them. He's still a boxer at heart. He's still a guy who maybe admires and looks up to champions of boxing and getting this chance to fight in America. Maybe he was privileged to fight a guy like Apollo or a guy like Rocky just as a champion to prove that he's could hang with those types of guys. And he was told to basically kill this guy or not stop, until this dude was pummeled to death, and maybe he didn't want to do that. Maybe he had some regret about that. I don't know. But he was kind of manipulated. I don't know. I have this little backstory I kind of made up for Drago where he's, you feel some sympathy for him because maybe, then his country turned his back on him and he became just a dude, and a dude fighting for survival, kind of like Rocky, probably in Ukraine, living in squalor, as we see with his son. But we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead to Creed 2, but a little bit. But I think go and watch the Rocky IV director's cut, and if you ever want to, jump to Creed 2. It's a great double feature, especially for the Drago story. It's really, really good.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So then we
jump to the black sheep of the franchise that people are hit or miss on. Rocky IV. Rocky V, excuse me, not Rocky V.
Yeah. I liked this one. Like I loved Rocky and Rocky II. I really enjoy Rocky III, Rocky IV. There's some good stuff, but there's also some stuff that I'm glad the director's cut. Like if the director's cut was the only cut that we got, I would say this is nearly like a top 5 franchise for me.
Okay.
Maybe top 3, like because I think every movie hits, including this one.
I don't hate Rocky V. At least as much as the critics do. I think there's things that they do better in other movies, as we're talking about, dynamics and stuff. I think there's a lot of good ideas in Rocky V. I think some of the ideas are a little clunky as they come out. I think especially the first 30 minutes of this movie is really clunky. Really, really clunky.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then I think they find their stride once they kind of get to Philly and get Rocky back to just being Rocky and start his stuff with Tommy. I think there's good stuff in there. I just think
we can get there quicker.
I think the setup and the way we get there is really clunky and shoddy. Like the fact that this is one where I wish they hadn't picked up right where the other one left off a little bit. I wish there had been a little bit of time jump because I think it's really awkward. When he comes back. And his kid is recast to his real son, and he's like 10 years older than the other kid. That's weird. Not, that doesn't make any sense.
Was 5 years
and ago, that they're immediately like got George Washington Duke coming up and being like, "I'm going to ambush you at this press conference to sign a contract to fight Union Kane." Like that's really weird. And they don't really explain the losing the money thing very well. It's like, oh, he signed over power of attorney because we were going to be in Russia. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like really, that's odd. The way they do it is just really weird. Once we get past all that and get to Rocky being back in Philly with the family, like back to being like a character story, I think it kind of locks in and becomes a better movie. So
I agree because I think once we get back to Philly, I enjoy. I put this on par with Rocky 2 for me personally, but that setup,
it's really really clunky.
Because I think it's a great way to go with the character. Like you can't just do the same thing you did in the first 4 Rocky movies. Like to me, that would just feel repetitive. Like, all right, he's gonna meet this fighter. He's gonna become an underdog again, and we're gonna build up to this big final fight, and he's gonna win.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I wanted that, I would just watch Rocky 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I like that they put him in a sort of manager trainer role,
Sure.
and that we were getting some of the stuff with him and his son. I think the stuff with him and his son once they get back to Philly is great. Because it's like I think Rocky still still has that hunger. He still wants to be in this world of professional boxing,
Sure.
but he knows that like he can't do it as a fighter.
Right.
That's just not where he's at. And so, he meets Tommy, Tommy Gunn. Great nickname, by the way. Very original, Tommy the Machine Gun.
Machine Gun, yeah.
there's-
Played by real life boxer Tommy Morrison, who had a very kind of similar story where he was a professional fighter that supposedly contracted HIV, but then tested for it negatively later. Some people think he was like framed for it, or somebody faked his results and something or other, and then he still died of like a drug overdose. It's a very strange story. He died in his 40s if you look into it. But you can find some of his real fights on YouTube. Like he was a real professional boxer.
Yeah.
He fought some guys that fought Mike Tyson back in the day, things like that. But yeah, I mean, he's got a spectacular mullet in this movie. I'll say that his mullet is top notch for Tommy Gunn. But yeah, I mean, I do like the sort of triangle of him and his real life son, and then Tommy, his kind of new surrogate son. As he tried, and the dynamic between that. I think it's a nice little dynamic between them. Adrian being kind of caught in the middle, and yeah, still wanting to have that fire and putting that fire through Tommy. Living out those dreams again. Of that rising star through Tommy Gunn and playing with the dynamic of them, then Tommy getting jealous of them, just keep referring to him as, Rocky's gun and Rocky's puppet and Rocky's robot and all this stuff, and him wanting to kind of break out on his own. But at the same time, it's like the people want to see Rocky kind of, not really him. They're going to the fights to see kind of Rocky there. And, they're going to see him, but it's like, no, we just kind of like Rocky and, we'll watch your guy, whatever. Because when he's there without him, they're booing him, they're chanting for Rocky, they kind of turn on him. But I like all that stuff. I think George Washington Duke is a fantastic character. I think he steals every scene he's in. It's cool that we finally have like a promoter. We don't see a lot of promoters in these movies.
No, yeah.
The last time we saw a promoter was in the original Rocky. We have that Jensen guy or something like that. The one guy who initially offers the fight to Rocky, like that one guy.
Yeah.
Promoter. That's really the only time we've seen a promoter. So it's kind of cool that we have sort of, because it was the era of the Don King big fight promoter. These guys who were at the press conferences, these guys who were big personalities who did the interviews. And I think I'm forgetting the actor's name. He was around a lot, but. Yeah, he's great. Every scene he's in, just only in America, this is a land of opportunity. Like he's so over the top. He's a ton of fun. I think he's a great character, and he's a nice heel. Twisting Tommy every time he gets a chance. Turning on Rocky, calling him a fool. Offering all these gifts and glamour and everything, and offering Tommy a woman who's like 20 years older than him, which is odd. Okay. Not some like 20-year-old offering like some 45-year-old who's probably been with all the other boxers. That's weird.
Right.
That redhead chick. That's odd. But yeah, it's a good dynamic, especially when Tommy finally breaks away from him, and then he's not even acknowledging Rocky, and everybody's turning on him. I love the press conference where even the press are kind of like calling him a paper champion and saying the Union Cane thing was a pushover and that was nothing, and you'll never be Rocky, like, and he gets frustrated. I think all that stuff's great. Like, I think there's some good stuff in this movie, like really good stuff.
Yeah, and the stuff with his son I think is great because he just wants his attention. He just they're supposed to be the home team.
Yeah,
and you kind of see that at the beginning, like he comes like when they come back from Russia, and it's like, all right, well, hey, let's go upstairs, blah blah blah. Like, you just spent how much time away from your son, and you can't spend some time with me? Like,
yeah.
Like I would be upset too. Like,
yeah.
And then like I like his growth as a character throughout the movies. Like, he learns to fight, learns to stand up for himself, takes care of
his own little mini training montage along with alongside Tommy's fighting montage. You get a little bit of him doing his. They bring back the guy from the original two movies, the kind of side trainer. Like, if you notice, the guy with the beret hat or whatever. I can forget that character's name. Is but yeah, he's in there a little bit too, kind of helping him. Paulie's even kind of helping him out a little bit. But yeah, because Paulie's probably like whispering in his ear, no, like knock this dude's block off, take a baseball bat to him. Like, you know, he probably heard about his bullying, and Paulie's like, yeah, learn how to fight and punch this dude's lights out. You know, like you could see Paulie totally advocating for that 100%, you know, on the side. But yeah, when you finally kind of, you know, when Tommy turns on him and he realizes, no, like we've been here for you the whole time, and you've been focused on this dude who, you know, didn't, you know, wasn't all in with you, you know, who was only out to kind of capitalize on you. It's great. And then, come on, who doesn't love a good old fashioned street fight? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that scene is so great when he shows up at the diner, when, you know, he's talking trash. Rocky wants nothing to do with him. He punches out Paulie. And you know, I love the dual lines of now you knocked him down. Why don't you try knocking me down? And then he says, "We'll do it in the ring. My ring's outside." Like that's great. That's so good. That's a really good stuff.
Yeah, because he's referred to in the other movies as a street fighter.
Well, and Duke even says that after he gets the initial knockdown when they go outside, and Rocky puts a beating on him pretty quickly, and then he goes, "Now Balboa's a street fighter. You a prize fighter." You know, like he grew up in the streets. He probably had fights left and right in the streets. You know, yeah, he's a scrappy street fighter. He's not a polished, you know, prize fighter. And yeah, and apparently I did read something where Terry Funk helped coordinate some of the fight, the street fight, which is why there's a couple like. There's like a back suplex in this thing. There's a couple of like quick little side takedowns. There's some double legs. You know, there's a few things here and there. But yeah, it's a different dynamic to it. You know, Rocky's putting him in a headlock and punching him in the back of the head, you know, which you're not allowed to do in boxing. So, you know, there's a little bit of street fighting here and there. But it's a good fight, man. Like, yeah, it's a different dynamic. And yeah, it doesn't need to be Rocky versus Tommy in a ring. Like, it's what sets us apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though you see that's where they're building it up to, and it's like, all right, well, are we gonna get another training montage? He's gonna get back in ring shape, and we're gonna get a fight. He's gonna be champion again. No, it ends in the street in Philadelphia. No, and I really like that.
He calls him out outside the diner, and he's like, "We don't need no damn ring. Let's just do this right now.
Let's just do it now, and let's end this."
Yeah, let's end this feud right now. You talk some trash to me, like, you know, I'm talking some trash to you. Let's just throw down. Let's do it. And yeah, he's down too. So yeah, it's a great finale. It's different. It sets this one apart from everything else. And you know, I love his. You know, I didn't hear no bell. Let's go one more round. You know, like I love that. Like it's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, again, I think this movie has a lot of good stuff in it. It's just clunky in parts of it. You know, it's a little sloppy in certain parts. And it has a dynamic at the center of it of Rocky training young prospect that I just think they do slightly better in Creed. I think they just do it a little bit better there, and it's a little more polished and a little more natural in Creed. So I think it's a concept they kind of took from Rocky V and did it a little bit better, you know, later on.
Yeah.
Something they kind of take from that. And obviously we'll talk about Creed here in a few minutes, but before that, we have to get Rocky in the ring one more time.
Yeah.
Rocky Balboa 16 years later in 2006. And around the same time period that he rebooted and gave an extra finale to Rambo 2 years later, where he was in the mood to give these characters some proper kind of finales at the time, you know, once it's to his satisfaction. And yeah, 2 movies he both directed. Yeah, we get Rocky Balboa, which I didn't know what to think when I originally saw this in 2006 when I saw it in the theater. I went into it a little skeptical because I was just like, because I knew from the trailer that he gets in the ring again. And I was like, I don't know if I need to see like 60-year-old Rocky Balboa in the ring. Like, and people made jokes at the time, Jacob. I mean, I remember the marketing of this thing just being like, or not so much the marketing, but like the build up to it, and articles just being like, do we really need this? Like, is this going to work? Like, you know, older. I mean, we know Stallone's in shape. I mean, obviously the dude's always in shape. He looks good. But like, how are they going to set that up in the movie? How is it going to make any kind of sense that he's fighting, you know, what's probably a 30-year-old dude who's champion, you know, in his prime, you know, and Mason Dixon, who was another real life boxer, who looks good.
Speaking of, I mentioned it with Tommy the Machine Gun. What a terrible name. Mason the Line Dixon. Like, what were, I don't know. Did Sylvester Stallone write this one too?
I think he did. Yeah, you know, he wrote this.
Was he just like the Line? That sounds like a good nickname.
I don't see why they couldn't have just had Antonio Tarver just be Antonio Tarver. You know, but you can give him a nickname and be like Antonio the Tiger Tarver. I don't know, something like give him something. But yeah, Mason the Line Dixon, like Like that's not completely on the nose, like Tommy the Machine Gun, just like the most on the nose, thing
He
ever.
gives himself a cool nickname, the Italian
No,
Stallion.
Italian Stallion's a cool
That's a
nickname.
great nickname.
Apollo gives himself some cool nicknames. The Master Disaster, the King of Sting. The Count of Monte Fisto. All those are a lot of fun. Those are great nicknames. I love the Master Disaster. I think that's a great.
The Count of Monte Fisto.
Count of Monte Fisto. Yeah, that's great.
Good.
I think he's like the Prince of Punch. Something like that. Like he's got a whole bunch of them. Because even Rocky IV, he's just like, "We done with your nicknames yet, bro?" And he's like, "We'll be done in a second, Stallion. Hang on." And like I think that's fun. But yeah, Mason the Lion Dixon is just like, okay. But I mean, it's a real boxer. It's Antonio Tarver, so that's cool. It's a real dude. They do a more modern style to the fight. It looks like a presentation pay-per-view you see now on like HBO or Showtime. Like it looks like a real. They present it like a real fight. Like
which is something I appreciate about these movies is that they do bring like HBO and Showtime, and then in this newest one, DAZN.
And Mauro Ranallo does the commentary for the newest one. That
Mauro was and Todd Grisham.
Showtime
stuff. Like
Mauro Ranallo gets to hit a Mamma Mia in that one, which I liked. So it's not really like a spoiler. It's just we're just saying Mauro Ranallo does commentary for it, and he says Mamma Mia.
It's not Mauro Ranallo commentary if he doesn't hit a Mamma Mia.
Yeah, no, that's fun. But yeah, like this one has Max Kellerman like his on color commentary, and you bring in some real personalities. We see Mike Tyson in the crowd for that fight. Talking trash with Mason Dixon. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves to the actual like setup of the movie, but it's just something I kind of jumped to that the presentation of the fights, the talking heads in the movie, Burt Sugarman, all these guys who are like real, boxing commentators and journalists, talking about boxing and talking about Rocky and Apollo and these guys as like their past champions and their fights and things. It was just fun. But yeah, I mean, we get this setup where we do a time jump and Adrian has died of cancer. And I believe she has ovarian cancer or something like that in the actual canonical thing. But yeah, she died in 2002. So it's just him and Paulie, and Paulie's still hanging around, and he's still just being Paulie, still working at the meat factory, still hanging around. Rocky's just a single dude. He's still well known. He's still well liked. We see him walking around Philly and yo champ, yo Rock, people know him. He's still an institution. But I like the fact that he did get like a regular job. He has a restaurant. He's just running a restaurant, and he's kind of doing this thing. You see some of these old, and that's a real thing that some sports guys do, Jacob. These guys that open like restaurants or something, call it after themselves or whatever.
He called this one Adrian's, which
Adrian's, which I appreciate. It's a nice tribute to her. Yeah, and I like that. And it's an Italian restaurant. That makes sense.
It's an Italian restaurant with Mexican chefs.
The Mexican chefs, they make fun of that. They're like, "Oh yeah, the best Italian chefs are Mexican." But it's fun. I mean, he's doing his thing where he's, going around from table to table, telling fight stories. I mean, he's probably got it down to where he's told these stories 900 times, to where he's, he knows how to do the 5-minute condensed version of the story, to entertain the crowd. I'm sure they like it. But he's living the life that he wanted to live. He's living the family life. He's not fighting. He's making a living. Not an amazing living, but he's making a living. Yeah. And his relationship with his son is a little rocky. Put it that way, to make it fun.
He is now being called Robert instead of Rocky
Robert, Jr. Yeah, because he doesn't want to be. He's living in the shadow that he doesn't want to live in. And yeah, I like their dynamic in the film. I think a lot of people pointed out that the speech that Rocky gives to him about how much you can get hit and keep moving forward is one of the best pieces of writing in the series. I think it's a really good moment. A lot of great character dynamic in this one, and yeah, the way they set it up, the actual exhibition, because again, it's officially an exhibition. It's not an actual professional, on the record fight, but with this simulation, they do with Mason Dixon versus a past champion. It's kind of cool. It's a nice little way to kind of get interested in it. I like it.
Yeah, and it kind of makes it feel more modern and not just a setup like the other movies. I like that they did that. And you mentioned the writing. I think that's should be talked about more. I think this was really well written.
Yeah, really well written.
The speech he gives when he's trying to get the license. And they deny him. I think that's really good.
About being happy, the pursuit of happiness, and do what you want to do, and you guys shouldn't deny me because I want to do this. And he it's just, again, it goes back to that Warriors way where he feels like there's this fire he's got to get out of him. He feels like he's got one more fight left in him. He's just got enough gas in the tank for one last race. You know, he just feels like he's got something in him that he needs to get out. Like, and he doesn't even want to fight big fights. He just wants to fight a local guy here or there, you know, fight like a low key thing, maybe like a 6-round fight, you know, just whatever, kind of like he did the original movies. We allude to that a little bit with the return of Spider Rico, who pops up in this thing, you know, who's bumming around the restaurant and starts washing dishes, and the guy he fought in the original movie in the church, and there's a lot of nice little callbacks like that. But yeah, he's got this, you know, and I'll tell you what else I like. A relationship he has, and it's not a romantic relationship, but the relationship.
Yes, I was really worried about that.
No, they don't do a relationship with Lil Marie. Like they bring back a cool character. It's a nice callback, and it's not a romantic relationship. It's just a literal friendship from a past person who he just bonds with, and he bonds with Steps, you know, the kid, and you know, they just have this kind of, it's a professional relationship, and when they go to, you know, Vegas and she's there, you know, it's a kiss on the cheek. She brings him the photo of Adrian, you know, like it's not, they make it very clear. It's not a romantic relationship, you know, it's just, she's just there to support him. And she doesn't push back on it. She says, hey, if you got this fire in you that you got to get out, fighters fight, like go do it. You know, do what you got to do to get it out of there. And they just say, make sure this is the one time where you get it out, though, you know, because you're old. You can't
which is the complete opposite of what Adrian would have done.
Adrian would be having a conniption.
Adrian was trying to stop him in Rocky 3. Like,
well, and I think that's why in storyline she's dead in this movie. One of the reasons, because if she was alive, there's no way in hell she would let Rocky get back in the ring at 60 years old. She just wouldn't, you know. And so I think they had to move past that in storyline some way, and unfortunately her having passed away off screen is kind of the only way to do that, because the whole movie would have been, what are you, nuts? Like, you can't get back in the ring at 60 years old. Like, what are you, insane? And fight a real professional champion fighter? Like, no. But much like the original Rocky, when they do get to the fight, it's an exhibition. You know, Mason Dixon's not taking it terribly seriously. And again, why should he? He's fighting a 60-year-old man who's well past his prime, and he's the current champion. I mean, pretty much every, you know, prediction person and journalist thinks that Mason's going to whip him pretty easily, you know, and again, rightfully so. you know, he is Rocky, but at the same time, you know, they go into the training montage and Duke, and I like they bring back Duke. Like, that's always fun to see Tony Burton again. And he flat out tells him, you can't spar. You got no speed. You know, you can't do this. You can't do that. He's like,
no hard running. No,
you can't do all this. Your joints are out. You're gone. So we're just going to be looking to every time you punch, you just got to hurt him.
Yeah.
Period. So
I like how they said that, like, no hard running, blah, blah, blah. And then when they cut to the montage, the first thing they see him doing is
running. Yeah. Well, he can't do hard running.
Hard running, but it's like,
yeah. I mean, and he's even struggling still getting up the steps in this one, even with the dog. Like, he makes it, but he's kind of holding his side a little bit. You know, he can't do it as well. Yeah, he doesn't have the cardio. He can't do the heavy speed and dancing. You know, it's just
Rocky could, but let's be honest. 60-year-old Sylvester Stallone probably
could. Yeah, he probably could. He's playing a little older in these movies. Yeah, I think he's still in great shape. But yeah, and we finally get to the actual fight, and again, I think the right result for the fight. They have a drag out fight. The champion gets put through the ringer as part of his storyline. I think he's never really been put to a heavy test. They feel like the journalists feel like he's had easy fights. He's never gone the distance. He's always had quick knockouts. They feel like he hasn't been tested. His heart hasn't been tested. He has not been tested as far as, can he dig down deep and find that fire, you know, in those later rounds? Does he have the heart of a champion? And that's kind of what they allude to kind of in the Rocky fight, what they try to bring out of him. So I love that he has a thing with his trainer, like that little, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Mason Dixon talking with his old trainer and having that thing. He's like, you got pride, you know, like, but you never really been put to the test, you know, like he has a thing kind of like Mickey, where he's just like, you got to find that fire again. Like, you know, you're surrounded by all this money, you're surrounded by all this. And like, you got to find that again. And I like that. I like that we get a little bit of time with Mason Dixon to kind of find his motivation for the fight, and what they're looking to get. But, you know, it's a split decision, but Mason wins, as he should.
As he should, yeah.
As he should.
Yeah, because this isn't professional wrestling where, you know, the decision can be, you know, make you go like this, and like, oh, that's professional wrestling.
Yeah,
like, this is real. well, not real. Like I'm not
A
saying
little
professional
more
wrestling is
real.
fake.
A little more real.
But,
Yeah.
like, I'm a wrestling fan. I know it's not fake, but
Yes.
it's scripted.
Right.
But no, these are real outcomes, and yeah, no, I agree. Right decision. I like that Rocky doesn't even stay in the ring. He's
No,
like, all
he's
right,
just like,
well,
I'm done.
I
I'm
did what
done.
I want to do. I had a good
And I'm
fight,
leaving.
and now I'm
Bye.
out of here.
Yeah.
I had my son, which I like. I like that his son was able to be there. Like he quits his job. And he's like, I think I want to see you fight one more time. That's
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I like that the fight wasn't personal.
No.
Like it was just a, hey, this thing on Sports Center,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like, hey, if you want to come out of retirement, like, hey, here's an idea.
Yeah.
They run with it, and it happens. It's a good fight. It might be one of my favorite fights in the entire franchise.
It's a really good
fight.
choreographed fight, and much like the fight with Drago in behind the scenes a little bit, Stallone told Drago to hit him like for real, and it put him in the hospital a couple of times. There was one point where Dolph Lundgren punched him in his chest and shifted his heart, and he had to be in the ICU for a couple of days, legitimately, because he was a karate champion, so he legitimately knows how to punch. And then in this one, Mason Dixon's a real fighter, so like it's almost like trying to retroactively like, hey, you've been hitting dudes for real. Now try not to hit them for real. And he was just like, no, like, I mean, do your best, but you're probably going to hit me a lot for real, but just do it. You know what I mean? It'll look good. And if you watch the fight, like he's hitting him for real a lot of those things. But yeah, he gets to, like you said, the actual choreography of the fight, the opening round, Rocky's swinging for the fences, but like Mason Dixon's a good fighter, and he easily telegraphs and ducks damn near everything he throws at him initially. And yeah, he only really gets an advantage when Mason breaks his hand and is stunned for a minute, and then Rocky goes to work on him, and finally gets some good shots in and starts working the body and stuff. But I mean, when Rocky's blatantly reeling back and trying to swing, yes, any good professional fighter can probably see that coming and duck it. He's like Floyd Mayweather, who's one of the best defensive guys. Like, you're not going to hit him like that. He's going to see that coming. He's going to duck. So, I mean, yeah, it's a very realistic fight in that aspect where, the speedier, younger fighter is probably gonna duck and dodge damn near everything you throw at you. This is why you got to take them down when you get those opportunities. But yeah, it's a realistic fight. It's a good fight. It's a brutal fight. Like when they do the black and white and show the blood with the red. Like, I think that's a good dynamic, and that's fun. Yeah. And everybody's kind of treating it as a joke, but at the end, they're saying it's one of the best fights they've ever seen. So I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, and it's a fight that both guys came out looking strong because Rocky is 60 and Mason should have maybe won by round 4 or 5 max. But no, Rocky he's always been that underdog that I'm going to do what it takes to survive and to win, and I've prepared for this the best I can. And I'm going to give you the fight of my life. He gives him the fight of his life. Mason proves that he can fight and that he can hang, because that was always a criticism.
And he can persevere through injury and through, because he breaks his hand during the fight.
Yeah.
He takes some lung shots. They say he might have cracked a rib during the thing. He takes some punishment and he digs down deep and keeps fighting, which is what they said. Now that they respect him a little more, because he's been put through the ringer. He's had to dig down deep and find that warrior spirit. He didn't just knock somebody out in 2 rounds, and come out not breaking a sweat. He had to dig down deep and find that warrior spirit, and that's cool. And again, so yeah, he looks better because of it. And yeah, it's really the best outcome you could ever have. Rocky proves that he could still go in there and hang and get that fire out of him. And yeah, it's a good fight. Yeah, it's one of my favorites of the series too. I think it's a really good finale. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we start Rocky's new journey. As a
almost 20 years later. 19 years later. With his new journey with Creed, and Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan.
So we start off meeting young Adonis in a juvenile detention center. We learn that Apollo's wife takes him in, who is not his biological mom, but does take him in and is that motherly figure. I mean, he calls him mom throughout the entire Creed series. So it is played by Felicia Rashad, who I think is incredible in the role. I think Michael B. Jordan's incredible in the role. But he wants to make it on his own. So he's not Adonis Creed at the beginning. He's Adonis Johnson. And which I mean, you want to make it on your own if you're the offspring of a famous athlete, especially one with Creed's background. Like he
sure,
arguably one of the best to ever do it. So I think this is a great spin-off and kind of continuation of the series where we see somebody else in the forefront, but we do see Rocky coming back as that kind of trainer manager ish figure.
Again, like I said, just done better than Rocky V. I think it's tighter and a little more natural, the way he had kind of progresses in this one. And it's kind of similar to Rocky V. Adonis is trying to get him to train him, and for a while he says no. Like, I don't want anything else to do with boxing. I'm done with boxing. That's my old life is gone. I fought my last fight. I don't want anything. I just want to run my restaurant. Paulie's gone now. We don't understand Paulie's passed away now. Paulie's gone. And he's truly, truly retired now, and just wants to run his restaurant. He doesn't want anything to do with boxing anymore. Maybe he's hesitant again. They don't call it out by name, but maybe he's hesitant to train somebody because of what happened with Tommy. What happened with Tommy Gunn? He trained Tommy, treated him like a son, and Tommy turned on him. So maybe he's hesitant to get involved with that again, which is how you can kind of play Rocky V into it, that he's hesitant to maybe teach Adonis, even knowing who he is, maybe much more so knowing who he is, that, Apollo was his opponent, and maybe he doesn't want Adonis to be his opponent, not literally, but like to turn on him, like an opponent. And, he just is afraid of what might happen because of what happened to Tommy. That's a legitimate concern they never call out. But when you think about the series as a whole, he might be thinking about that in the back of his head.
That's not crazy to think at all. And we learned that he hasn't actually Rocky hasn't actually talked to his since the funeral.
Yeah.
They allude to. So there's some hesitation there, but ultimately, he does end up trading him. I think this is the best, other than maybe the first, that Sylvester Stallone has acted in the series. He is incredible. When he's getting sick, I think, just his entire performance. Like, I think he is the best part of this movie. I think the fight scenes are good, but Sylvester, oh my goodness, the fact that he wasn't best supporting actor this year.
I know I've been griped about that a lot because we've seen Bridge of Spies just come up a lot in tournament fights, so it just always kind of bugs me every time it comes up. But the whole Mark Rylance beating him that year for the Oscar, I think was just wrong. I don't think he's that. I don't think he's that good in Bridge of Spies. I think he's very one note, and B, I just think Stallone turning in this kind of performance this late in his career for a character he's nurtured and played and loved, for 30, 40 years, and giving maybe his best performance as that character, maybe since the original. I think he should have gotten the Oscar for this. It almost would have been like one of those Lifetime Achievement Award kind of things. But I just think it would have been perfect. And it's not like he was nominated for lead actor. I mean, he's a true supporting actor in this movie. It is Adonis's story. But I think he absolutely deserved for this one. It would have made for a nice story. That's one I know we talked about on our Oscars, got it wrong. But I'm
going to bring it up every single time.
I'll bring it up every time I have the opportunity, because I think if we could retroactively change one of them, this would be one of the ones that I would change. I just think it's just wrong. He's amazing in this movie, and his chemistry with Michael B. Jordan is spot on. They have a great chemistry, once they do start to get to know each other. I love he's always asking him about his dad, and they have that dynamic, but he's not the same type of fighter as Apollo. He's a different fighter. Mm-hmm. He's a different type of guy. He's got that blood in him, but he's his own. He tries to be his own guy. As you said, he doesn't even call himself Adonis Creed till later in the movie.
Until he has to. Yeah,
he's Hollywood Donnie. For the first part, and even that first fight he has, that one take fight, which is incredible, by the way. That one take fight that he has in the middle of the movie is really well directed and really well done. That he has with Danny. It's good stuff, and his style is different, and he's not even like Rocky. He fights different than him, but Rocky's got all this knowledge to give to him, and it's great, man. It's a good story that, again, I was hesitant again going into it. I was like, is it just going to be another Rocky clone? I mean, yes, it's in the same thing, it's in the same franchise, but are they going to be able to make it different enough to where it feels different? You know, it's not the same story. And I think they've been able to, through these three movies, really carve out a nice story for Adonis on his own, you know, while again having that Rocky element and having him there in the background. But these three movies truly are Creed movies. They are not Rocky 7, Rocky 8, Rocky 9. You know, they aren't. These are truly Creed movies. They are their own thing, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, they do borrow some things from the previous movies.
Of course,
it's Rocky.
It's still in the Rocky franchise. He's going to have a training montage. They put a spin on the music. You know, it's a remix version of the music. Yeah. You know, he's going to have those things.
We haven't brought up yet, but the music in all of these movies is incredible.
The original scores by Bill Conti. That iconic score is so perfect. It's just perfect. You know, Gonna Fly Now is one of the great inspirational songs of all time. Yeah, even the other pieces, like the piece that they use for the Rocky 2 fight is really good. The doon, 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 doon. Like the music they use for the Rocky versus Drago fight is excellent. The like that stuff is good. The actual use of real the band Survivor, their music is great. You know, Eye of the Tiger, Burning Heart, all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then
Eye of the Tiger won Best Original Song, right?
If not, I should have because it's pretty great.
I think it did.
Yeah, but yeah, this and yeah, it's yeah, the music is great in this one. Yeah, because they use kind of a remixed modern version of the Gonna Fly Now stuff, you know, in this one for the training monster, which makes sense. They put a nice little, you know, new spin on it.
And you know, they also I like that they paid homage to like the Rocky running and people following him, and in this one you have Creed running, and then the people following him on the bikes and
on the ATVs and the bikes.
Yeah.
I
like that.
No, it's fun. Yeah, everything's just with a new spin, but it's creating kind of a new thing. You know, Stallone doesn't understand technology when they're using technology to promote the fights and to do different things. You know, he's still that kind of old boomer. You know, like I don't.
And there was a callback to him, like not being able to read because, like, when he's writing down what he, the for Creed, you know, shadow boxing, and Creed's like kind of helping him spell it. Like I thought that was like. Yeah, we still know that he can't.
The shadow. Okay,
shadow W. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. W.
Like, it was a little thing, but like I like that they're, you know.
I even like the little moments where Adonis is watching the Super Fight 2 on YouTube. You know, he's watching it on YouTube. He's watching Rocky and Apollo have their fight on YouTube. You know, because that would make sense. You know, those fights would be on YouTube. Like it's a small detail. I just like that. He pulls it up on his tablet and he's watching it. I mean, it's a nice little update. Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson have great chemistry. You know, their relationship is great with Bianca. She's got her own storyline about her hearing loss, you know, so it brings in a nice ASL dynamic. My ex was an ASL teacher, and I saw her use ASL a lot, and I like the fact that ASL is kind of making a comeback in a lot of big ways in a lot of modern movies, you know, especially Creed 3. Oh my God, Creed 3 it's all over Creed 3. The ASL is all over that movie.
Yeah, I mean, we had a Best Picture winner that was all centered around it. So
Coda. Coda. That was all ASL. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely making a comeback, and it's very cool that they're, you know, I just think that they're legitimizing that as a language, because it's a full-on language. But yeah, it's very
and they're not just like shoehorning it in, like, hey,
no.
Like it makes sense. Like
it's part of her character, and it's why she has to eventually retire from singing, because she can't. You know, that she's got the hearing loss. Like it makes sense for her character. Yeah, it's not just like shoehorned in there. And yeah, it plays a bigger part even when their daughter's born. So, but yeah, Creed's it's a great, like, again, sort of it's definitely a sequel spinoff, but it's a true, you know, start to a new story, and I like that. But while having that, you know, Rocky epilogue, you know, you know, because I don't mind. Let's see what Rocky's up to. What's been going on in his life? It's been a long time. We don't know what he's up to, you know. And people have passed away. You know, he's still doing his thing, but just checking in on him every now and then, seeing what he's got going on.
Yeah, and I think they use him perfectly. They don't
perfect.
He doesn't take too much screen time. He's and like his motivation. Well, Creed's motivation for fighting is like, hey, like once we find out that he's sick and like the chemo is like, well, that didn't work too well for Adrian, so I'm not gonna. And he finds out later on when he comes back, they're at the gym, and it's like, well, hey, if I'm gonna fight, you're gonna fight.
Yeah.
He's like, all right,
fair enough. Yeah,
and he's training him in the hospital, like while he's doing chemo.
Well, and I think you can even look at it from Rocky's perspective to where he's all alone now, and he's been without Adrian for in storyline 13 years, or something, and that was. Say what you will about Adrian, and she's always kind of pushing back against his fighting, but they have a connection and they were everything together. And he loved Adrian with all his heart.
She's the voice of reason.
They were partners, and she was the perfect counterbalance to him, to his spirit. And maybe at the point when he hears about the cancer, he's like, you know what? I've done everything I wanted to do in life. Everybody else has passed away. Paulie's not here anymore. Adrian's not here. I'm ready to pass on and maybe see her again. Like maybe he's got that part of him. And I get that. Like, what else does he have? He's done everything he wanted to do in life, but he's living again and finding a new motivation through Adonis, and maybe even doing right by Apollo and Apollo dying in the ring, and Adonis being this, new life out of death. Essentially, there's even an aspect of that where maybe he still feels guilty for Apollo dying in the ring and feels like he needs to redeem himself even a little bit, do better by the Creed name, through Adonis, and help this kid out and do right by that, so there's even a little bit element to that you can kind of dig into with him, maybe wanting to, redeem the spirit of Apollo, through Adonis, and what happened to them. Because I mean, they don't shy away from saying, little Duke even talks about this is a dangerous business. Your dad died in the ring. People can die in the ring. They don't shy away from talking about that. And it's a good element, which Julius from Remember the Titans playing Little Duke, which I love, which is great. He's always fun to see. Yeah, Wood Harris is great in these movies. Again, playing Duke's son, which is fun. He also became a trainer, so that's cool. Another little callback. Again, not overt, like if you don't catch it as a casual fan, but it's there if you want to look at it, that he's Tony Burton's kid. And it's great. So, and that leads into, Creed 2, which, as I talked about earlier,
which didn't start with a recap of Creed 1, which we didn't even mention, but it's kind of in the same vein as Rocky, where Creed is still like he's this newer professional fighter, so he doesn't win.
Yeah, no, I've been forgetting he doesn't win. No, he doesn't, and we see him. He wins it at the beginning of Creed 2 when he's more of experience.
Which when I first saw it, I was like, wait, he just won the champion. He's the champ now. Like, that's a very all right. Let's see where they go with this. And then obviously it goes into we bring back Drago and he's fighting that's the build now is him versus Drago
versus Victor Drago and a callback to Creed versus Drago, which has kind of dark elements to it with the original Creed versus Drago and what happened in that, and it's again, that's why I say that this makes for a great double feature with the director's cut of Rocky IV, because I love the stuff with Ivan Drago in this movie. I love the stuff. Every time he's on screen, I think it's great.
Dolph Lundgren has definitely grown as an actor.
He's much better actor now. He's still not like the greatest actor in the world, but I think he liked digging into this character again, and I just liked again that there were consequences, and we call back to what happened because he lost, and the country turned its back on him. And again, we see him living in a really crummy place in Ukraine, and with his son, and he's training his son again, trying to kind of redeem himself. But all that stuff with him when he goes into the restaurant, and there's even little details in the restaurant scene, Jacob, that I want to point out. When he first, it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole franchise, when Drago shows up at Adrian's to talk to Rocky, and at first he's just like, hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you in 40 years or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this is unexpected. And he doesn't know what he's there for, to be honest, which is why, if you notice, Drago sits down at a table. Rocky sits one table away from him, which is a little detail that I like. he doesn't sit directly across from him. He sits one step because he doesn't know why this dude's here. Maybe he wants to kill him. I don't know. Maybe he wants to punch his lights out after all these years. Who knows? Like he has no idea what this dude. This dude still killed Apollo. Like in his mind, he's still that guy.
He's still a murderer.
Yeah, he's still a dude who killed him. So he sits. It's just a little detail that he sits one table away, just that little bit of space, and we get to hear about what happened to him and how the country turned his back on him and exiled him, and you start to like kind of feel for Drago, like, and what he went through, and that he was the country's boy, and he was left with nothing, and his wife left him. Bridget Nielsen left him, as we see her even a little later making a cameo, which is cool. Yeah, she even left him, and was left with the kid, and that's it. And it's almost a redemption arc for him in a different way, but he's also training his kid to be kind of as sadistic as he was in the ring and as straightforward. And man, his kid is a beast in this movie.
Yeah,
ginormous. He is huge, and his name is Florian Montal. My God, this guy is huge, and it's like there's a legitimacy to when he's standing next to Creed and they bill him as 265 pounds or something, and Adonis is like 215 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like he looks at, man, that dude is a tank.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's enormous, and yeah, seeing that stuff, and again, much like they pull stuff from all the different movies, like Rocky 3, he fights and technically wins by disqualification, but gets destroyed.
Yeah,
gets absolutely mauled.
Yeah, the way I would describe this is, I think this is the greatest hits of Rocky 2, 3, and 4 in the best way possible.
Yeah, right.
Because in Rocky 2 you got the whole, we're gonna have a kid aspect. Rocky 3, he loses and he needs to like train and become like a different type of fighter to. And then Rocky 4, obviously
the fight. Then you literally have him facing a Drago, like from
Drago in Russia.
Yes, so it's that dynamic. But yeah, that fight is brutal. And yeah, I was wondering even when I saw it in the theater, when he goes to fight Drago, and I looked at my phone and I go, an hour? We're an hour into the movie? Like, are we pulling a Rocky 3 here? I was like, oh, this is interesting. And sure enough, we kind of do. Like,
yeah,
because he does not lose the title. He wins via DQ, like in wrestling. He maintained the title via disqualification because Victor punches him when he's on the ground, after the bell, and gets himself disqualified. So he keeps the title. But I like that they have that element where he's like, they're interviewing him later, and he's like, you lost the fight, and he's like, did I? Did I really lose the fight? Did you see him? At the end of the fight, I mean, breaking him in half. Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's a nice dynamic. He has to learn to fight toe to toe. He has to learn to take a hit. He has to be put through the ringer. And this one, I think the more and more I watch it, it's my favorite of the Creed series. I like this movie, that it kind of brings in a lot of those different elements. Yeah, I like the stuff with the daughter and him being worried about her having the hearing loss and all that kind of stuff, and their dynamic that they have, and him being a dad, and even struggling with the kid thing. Like, because I've seen, other people with kids struggle with that thing of like, the kid won't stop crying. What do I do? Oh my God, it's so stressful. Like, I get stressed out when a kid cries for more than 10 minutes. I'm just like, oh my God. And I had like a couple of hours of that. Like, what do you do? Like, that scene stresses me out. But yeah, it's my favorite of the 3 Creeds because you still have Rocky in there, like doing his thing. But I like that the end of his story is literally Rocky says, my time is basically done. It's about you now, kid. It's time for you to carve out your own legacy. He literally says that in the movie and pushes it onto him, which is why Creed 3 made sense that he's not in the movie. That he literally says, this is your franchise now, essentially. Like, I'm leaving now. I'm done. I've done everything I need to.
Yeah, the last we see of Rocky is him at his son's meeting his grandchild for the first time.
Yeah.
I think it's a great send off for Rocky, and if he's just living life happy with his son and grandson now, then
cool.
I think Rocky deserves it after nearly 50 years.
Yeah, let it finally be a grandpa and just rest, now and hang out. Yeah,
he deserves it.
Yeah, he deserves it. Yeah, and it truly is Adonis's series now, and and Creed 2 I think just works really, really well. It's really well directed. Yeah, it's Stephen Caple who directed this movie, kind of a relatively new director. He's directing the new Transformers movie, so we'll see how that goes. But at least it's not Michael Bay, I'll say that. So maybe I have hope for this one. But yeah, I think it's really well done. And there's a deleted scene I just want to point to where Rocky talks to Drago after the fight that they didn't include that I think is worth checking out. It's on the Blu-ray because he actually kind of buries the hatchet with Drago in a nice little scene. Him and they kind of shake hands and kind of put everything. And it's just more about putting to bed, and he has regrets about killing Apollo, like in the scene. It's a really good like epilogue. It just doesn't work well with the flow of the movie because like of his final thing of saying it's your time now or whatever. Because it's after the fight.
Yeah.
He goes back to the dressing room and talks to Drago. But it's worth checking out because it's a nice little button as far as their past and their story of them kind of reconciling.
I've never actually watched I need to check out the deleted scenes.
Yeah, check out the deleted scenes. That scene is worth it just as a cool little character scene, for them kind of, even coming to terms with like, like I regret killing Apollo, all this kind of stuff. Like it's pretty cool. It's a cool little scene. So
nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Creed 2 was. I think Creed is still my favorite of the new three, but this one it's really close because I think what we see Creed go through, and then he kind of has to overcome that, and then again another great training montage where they're like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
I think it's great. Like I said, it's the greatest hits of Rocky 2, 3, and 4 in the best way possible. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't think they've missed with a Creed movie yet, including this most recent one,
Creed 3.
Creed 3, which is the first in the Rocky franchise to not feature Rocky.
Yeah.
And I was a little hesitant, like, am I going to miss his presence? No, I didn't miss his presence at all. Would I have liked if he was in there? Yeah, because I mean, who doesn't like to see Rocky? But this movie didn't need him, so I don't mind him not being there.
Yeah.
It's a little early.
Little early. Not all the movies in 2022 have been released. He said 2022. Okay. Okay, so that makes sense. Not 2023. So okay.
Oh, I misread that.
Yeah. Okay.
Still, Top Gun Maverick.
I still like Top Gun a little bit more. Yeah, I like. There's a few other movies I like a little bit more than that. Yeah.
It is. I've only seen a handful of new movies this year, but it is my favorite so far for 2023.
Yeah, I still like the Batman a little bit more. I still like All Quiet. I like The Menu a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit of that. So we'll get our kind of non-spoiler thoughts out of the way, and then we'll get into some spoilers for Creed 3 for anybody watching. Overall, I like it. I don't love it. I have my issues with the movie.
I liked it. I think again, I think it was a smart character decision the way they go with Adonis's journey as a fighter. Jonathan Majors is having a great year.
Yeah, great year. Great breakout year because I know he's been acting for a couple of years, but he hasn't really had that big breakout yet. And yeah, for sure, he's having a big breakout year. It's pretty cool.
He was the best part of Quantumania, which I thought was just okay at best.
Not a great movie for me. I don't like that movie. And yeah,
arguably the best part of this movie too.
He might be. Yeah, he might be one of my favorite things about the movie for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's in 6.57 out of 10 territory for me. I like it overall. I have some pretty big gripes with the movie that keep it from going that I think are fixable, and I'll talk about that. I think
I'm about a 7.5 to 8 right now.
I think there's things you could do that would fix some of the problems I have to make it a little more cohesive, a little less clunky. This feels. I'll talk about the clunkiness of some of the transitions in the movie for me and some of the character motivations, but we'll talk about that. But overall, I like the movie. Jonathan Majors is good. Again, Michael B. Jordan is excellent. He does a great job directing the movie. I think it's very well directed.
Great debut.
Good. We'll talk about the final fight scene, but he does some stuff in the final fight that I really, really like. Some really cool, creative new dynamics in that movie that I really like. The training montage is excellent. And kind of where the characters are is really cool that they dig into more of his past, that they kind of call back to the original Creed with him being in the juvenile detention center. We get a little bit more of like, some of the stuff he got into when he was younger and, why he had a kind of a rocky, early history, and how he kind of got past that. So yeah, overall, I like the movie. I'm a positive on the movie. I just have some issues with the stuff that I think could have been improved to make it better, which is why I hope if they do a Creed 4 with Michael B. Jordan again, maybe they'll smooth some things out. I just think the movie could have used one more run through the writer's room. That's what I think to fix a few of the script issues I have. So yeah, let's get into some spoilers. But overall, I recommend the movie. I recommend people go see it. I will definitely say that.
It was good. Yeah,
a good solid movie, but probably my least of the Creed series at this point. I'll say, if I was to rank them, my least favorite of the Creed movies. So that's all. So yeah. Like I'll talk about the issues I have, Jordan. We'll get into it. So like I'll talk about the things I have.
So, please do.
No, it's entertaining. It really is, and I never didn't hold my attention. I was always invested. I just have issues with a few things. Again, as far as just kind of clunkiness of transition and character motivation. So we do get this Jonathan Majors character, Dame, who comes into this movie. We get this background that he was this, Golden Gloves champion. He was kind of a prospect, but he's got a temper. He's got a dirty side to him. He fights dirty. He's got this, they've got this shady, they're betting on themselves and they're doing kind of generally hanging out with generally shady people. And yeah, we get this thing. We eventually find out, we don't get the whole thing till kind of the end. They kind of get pieces of it, of the incident that happened where Adonis ran away from the situation and Dame got kind of the full thing for it. My first issue with the movie is why he's in jail. So he pulls a gun to save Adonis, right, on these two guys. Here's one issue I think you could fix and make it a little clunkier. Have him punch these dudes' lights out really, really badly and show his viciousness instead of pulling a gun. Have him come into that scene and pummel the dudes really, really hard to where the cops pull up and he's pummeling these guys on the ground and show that he has a viciousness, that he has that power. Again, show that boxing. Maybe they even kind of gang up on him and he uses his boxing prowess to fight them off and pummel them. I think you could easily then boost that scariness of him as a fighter even through that scene instead of just pulling a gun. Again, a little fix, but could have gone a long way just for big character, things. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is the way they get him the title fight. I think it's very, very clunky. The way I just think realistically, and these movies have been going more towards realistic boxing aspects. Realistically, there's no way this dude would have got a title fight no matter what the circumstances.
Yeah.
He has no record. He has not even boxed an amateur fight in 18 years. And all of a sudden, because he's your boy, this is the guy who gets the thing, even after he sets him, takes Victor Drago out. There's no way this one dude gets a fight. There would be an uproar in the boxing community. There would be other contenders that would be, pitching a fit, other managers that would be pitching a fit, other promoters that would be pitching a fit, about this dude getting a thing. Like, just because he's Adonis's dude, he gets a fight. It's not like in the original Rocky. I see people saying like, oh, it's like the original Rocky where he gives an underdog a chance. It's not the same. That was a gimmick because there was a whole thing where, and they spent half the movie setting up the gimmick of the original Rocky, that the guy he was going to fight, Mackley Green, had an injury, and he instead tried to figure out an angle to still have the fight on time. So his angle was that I'm going to give a local Philadelphia hero to celebrate the bicentennial here in the land of liberty, a local fighter, a chance at the title. It's not like it's set up in this movie where he's going to give this guy a redemption shot at the title because he's been in jail and he used to be a Golden Gloves guy or whatever, a shot at the title. He orchestrates an injury. This dude gets thing, and Adonis just goes, hey, why don't you just fight my guy? And he's just like, well, I guess I want to get paid, so okay. That's basically how they say it. And it's just very sloppy. Like, you need Adonis to be set up as really in this guy's corner for a while. You need to have him in his corner, him fighting other dudes. And again, I have a simple fix for this. Okay? You have Jonathan Majors fight Victor Drago before he fights Ricky Conlan, or before he fights whoever the guy, Ricky Ortiz,
Felix.
What's his name? Felix Ortiz. There, yeah, Felix. Sorry. So I think you don't have the Ortiz Drago fight scheduled. You have him be the contender, and you go, well, I want this opportunity. He goes in. He still does the sparring thing where he hurts Ortiz a little bit, causes a big stir. Maybe he gets in there and mixes it up with Drago a little bit in the sparring session because they're all kind of in the same gym. They're all kind of in the same circles. And Victor Drago says, hey, I'll put this guy out of his misery. You know what I mean? And, maybe him and Adonis still have kind of a beef. So he's like, I'll take out your dude, that you're propping up. You know what I mean? Show you I'm still the man. And then Adonis is in the corner of Dame. and they bring back Drago anyways, but I feel like it's kind of ancillary the way we bring him back. He's just kind of there. Like I think there's a way you can incorporate him by having Dame then fight Drago, and he beats Drago with these dirty tactics by showing his dirty side, by using these kind of underhanded methods, but also shows that he can dish out to a legitimate contender. And if he beats Drago just out of nowhere in this first professional fights back and takes him out, then all of a sudden he's got a spotlight on him. And hey, we need a contender. So now, hey, you got this guy who took out this, championship level contender, and I think he can do it. And then you have the fight where he takes the title. I just think this movie's a little under 2 hours, and all the other ones are a little over. And I think if you just these little minor fixes, a couple of extra scenes here and there, a couple of extra motivations, and I think you would have had a much smoother, a movie that just flows a little bit better. I don't know. I'm just kind of mostly spitballing, but I've been thinking about it for about a week here since I did it. Had a couple of these little things. I think the setup for Dame and Adonis's match is a little clunky. You have like the beach scene, which is fine, with him doing that, but then it's like he calls into the interview and they talk trash for a second, and he just like immediately takes the fight, and we're on to the training montages. It's like, let's have a little bit more back and forth. Let's have a little bit more antagonizing him. Let's have him antagonize the wife a little bit, Bianca a little bit. Let's have him antagonize Adonis a little bit more, calling him out, like kind of like Apollo did in Rocky 2, like calling him out on TV, calling him out in interviews, digging up more of that past, maybe even calling him out on his juvenile past, really like dragging his name through the mud, and Adonis really having to find that fire to kind of come out of retirement. Just a few more little things, Jacob, and I would have been there. A few more just little fixes, and I would have been right on board with thinking this is one of the best of the year, man. I'm just spitballing. It's just the movie feels a little rushed. It just feels rushed when you watch it. Like again, I'm not entertained. I'm entertained. I like it. The overall story that they're telling, I just think there's little things. There's not any callbacks in the end of the fight. I thought there was going to be a callback to maybe we see the daughter studying her fights. Like she's getting really into boxing. Like she's watching fights on the tablet. Like she's watching her dad. She's getting really into this. They're signing back and forth between each other. I just thought there was going to be a moment maybe in the final fight where she sees something because she's there ringside, but then they just leave. So she doesn't really factor into the thing. Like I thought it was going to be something where he's in the corner and maybe he's losing, but she noticed something that Dame was doing and maybe like signs and says like, hey, he's doing this, and she sees something. So he uses a tactic to beat him. Again, that would have made her connection to the story just a little bit stronger, something there. Just like little things that I think, little touches that would have just made everything just click a little bit more for me personally. So, but I'm sorry, I'm rambling on.
No, you're fine.
Again, I'm just getting these out of the way before I talk positively, but I mean, just my little fixes, man, like an extra 15 minutes worth of material, like, and I would have been right there. So yeah.
I personally didn't mind any of that stuff because it is, I think Creed, going to bat for his boy and like, hey, here's an idea. Like we don't have many options, but this guy, like I can vouch for him. I think he'll be fine. And clearly he's not fine. He is a dirty fighter. Yeah. Which I think that maybe that's the reason they show him like pulling the gun, is that maybe this guy is a bit of a shady guy. Like we don't know much about his past other than what they show us. So maybe there is a little bit more to it than
we're shown. Could we see him maybe fighting in prison? They do boxing in some prisons, like
thing we see in Creed is Adonis getting into a fight.
Right, but I mean legitimately even prison boxing. There's prison boxing matches. Yeah. Can we see him fighting in prison a little bit? Like maybe mauling dudes in prison left and right?
I'm wondering if there's like some studio involvement here where maybe there's maybe Jordan, like we need to keep this down to a specific runtime.
I feel like there's pieces missing out of this movie. That's what I feel like. I feel like, maybe Michael B. Jordan, his first time in the director's chair, didn't have as much creative power, over the movie, because there was a lot of producers on this movie. If you look, there's like a ton of people listening to the producers, like a ton. And there's several writers as well. Again, little things that would have helped me a little bit. Seeing him fight in prison a little bit, like because there's stuff where like I know there's prisons around the country that do like legitimate like prison boxing matches. We could see him mauling giant dudes in prison, like in the ring, putting that, staying in shape, like maybe training and trying to stay young, trying to stay healthy, but through the boxing. Like you could have done a little bit of that, having a little montage of him prison boxing or something, like I don't know, just like little things that I think would have helped. I just think he needed to have at least one. We need to see him box a little bit before he does his first fight, just a little bit, something.
Yeah, because all we see really is like sparring and training.
Sparring, and I just think Adonis should have been in his corner for at least one fight, legitimately, because he goes full bore for him immediately without even seeing him a fight. What if he puts his guy in there and Ortiz would have fucking knocked him out in the first round? Like it would have been, like that would have been really embarrassing. Like you're fighting the heavyweight champion of the world. He's not a scrub. It's like, I just think at least have him fight somebody, and you could maybe not even Drago. I just think it would have been a cool way, if you're going to have Drago back anyways, have him in there. But he could have fought the Danny Wheeler guy from the first movie. He could have fought somebody else, that's like a contender, from one of the previous movies, something, anything, just something where we see him fighting a little dirty, maybe Adonis having a hesitation, not wanting to be in his quarter, but Dame being like, oh, that was accidental, like I didn't mean to do that, whatever. Like he could still play him, like he's playing him throughout the whole movie, just like he's manipulating him. That's one of the things about Jonathan Majors does well in this movie, is you can always see his wheels turning in his head. He's a great actor in that way, like through his facial expressions.
During that fight, he's always watching.
Yeah, he's always watching something. He's always doing. Yeah, he's like picking up on little things. Like you could have had him do that, but then try to cover up and be like, I didn't mean to do that, or you didn't see it right, like you
the elbow.
Whatever. I just think there needed to be at least one boxing scene where you see him do that, a little bit, and him trying to smooth things over with Adonis, and then Adonis has to cover for him, and he digs in deeper, with Dame. Like there's, he gets in deeper and deeper and deeper, to where he has to finally, reconcile at the end. I just think there's little fixes, I think a little more space, a little more time to breathe. I think this movie it's an hour and 56 minutes that I think. The first Creed's 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think same with the second one. Like
it's like 2:10 or something like that.
It's something like that. Like I haven't pulled it. 2:10. I mean, this one, I think it could have used that extra 15 minutes of material to let it breathe just a tad. Like that's all I'm saying. This one just feels a little rushed in a couple of scenes. I would have liked to see him let breathe a little bit. But again, overall, I like the movie. I think Majors is great. He puts on a hell of a performance. I love every scene he's in. He's awesome. Jordan is great, kind of living the high life and kind of forgetting where he has. And I like the scenes with him as a kid. I think Bianca's great in this movie, telling him he needs to open up his feelings and being closed off. There's a lot of parallels between him and Adrian, Rocky and Adrian, with those types of scenes of that. And I love the stuff with him, his daughter, signing back and forth, teaching her how to box a little bit. Like that's cool. But again, even the bullying scene seems out of nowhere. She's like, the first time we see her at school, she gets bullied and immediately punches the girl in the face. I'm like, that's
that part, it was like,
I was like, can we see her learning how to punch once or twice before she punches the girl out? Oh, like again, space these things out just a tad. Like I just feel like we rush right into it and like we're not getting.
Yeah, hey, if we remember though, the first quality time they spent together was Adonis hitting the punching bag. So I mean,
yeah. So I mean, I'm just saying again, that just felt abrupt, when it happens. It's like she tears the thing in half and immediately goes and knocks the girl out. I'm like, okay, whoa, that was kind of out of nowhere. Like we could have seen her antagonize her just a tad, even for just one scene, for kind of getting bullied a little bit and something like that.
And with that, it makes me wonder, like if they do a Creed 4, are we gonna get this big time jump where Creed's training his daughter?
I don't know if I want to see that personally.
I don't know if I want to see it yet. It would be interesting, like if they do go like down the.
If they get to Creed 5,
if
they get to Creed 5 and you parallel back to the dynamic between Rocky and his son in that movie, and I do think it would freshen it up if you followed a female fighter. I think that'd be interesting, and I do think I could see them going there. Eventually, I think it's a little too quick if you jump and do a too big of a time jump in Creed 4, and it's like 10 years later, and she's because what is she, like 6 in the movie or something like that?
Yeah, it's been 5 years since Creed 2.
Yeah, 5 or 6. I mean, she's in what, kindergarten, first grade, maybe at the most.
Yeah.
So I think even a 10-year jump would be a little too early. I don't think I need to see like a 15-year-old fighter fighting. I think she needs to be 18, 20 years old, something like that before. But I do think down the line, if they get to the point of doing and Michael B. Jordan said he's willing to do like 3, 4, or 5, 4 and 5 at least. He's willing to do 2 more movies. I think if you do a super jump in 5 and do have maybe the daughter fighting, because then you could have issues where they're being like, hey, you're deaf, but like we don't want you to go blind too and have stuff with your eye, like we don't want you to have like more damage. Like there's a thing you could do. Plus, yeah, I do think it would freshen it up to have a female boxer in this series. I think it would be interesting.
A deaf female fighter.
Yeah, a deaf female fight. I think that'd be really interesting, to see how
Yeah.
that dynamic would play out. I think that would be interesting. I just think Creed 4 is a little too soon for that.
Yeah.
Just a little too quick, but maybe Creed 5 if they do end up doing 5 of these movies. I'm down. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go with Creed 4 because I know Michael B. Jordan has said he wants to do another one, and he wants to direct another one. So yeah, and whether or not we get an appearance from Stallone in that one, who knows? Because I know he's having issues with Erwin Winkler, the Winkler family right now with the rights and stuff and the rights to the characters. He's not too happy right now with where that's been going. He's been trying to get the rights back to the character that he created. So yeah, which he's having issues with, which is another behind the scenes thing. But yeah, it'd be interesting where the series goes.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mention that. The thing I alluded to, the stuff where the crowd goes away and it's just
I really like that.
I loved that. I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was a nice change of pace for like the final fight, to where we're just focusing on these two guys fighting and the crowd goes away and it's kind of silent and you're just hearing them talking back and forth. I love that. I just alluded to that. I want to make sure I mentioned that. That was great. I love that in the final fight. I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
So I've been thinking, who would I want to see be the big fight in Creed 4? Like who could step in? And I don't think it needs to be some young guy. Call me crazy. This is just something I would love to see. I would love to see Tom Hardy in Creed 4. Like, cause he's also a legit fighter. Like he won a Brazilian jiu-jitsu thing not too long ago. So that was like my first thought. Like, I would love to see Tom Hardy in a Creed movie. I loved him in Warrior. I mean, he can do the fighting. So like, I don't know what role he would be, but it's like, I don't want to see that now. I don't know wherever they go with Creed.
Yeah, I don't know where they're gonna go. I don't want to see any more like sons of previous fighters. I think we've done that to death. Like I don't want to see like Clubber Lang's kid in the next movie or something like that. Like I'm kind of done with, like we did it well with like Victor Drago. Like I'm good with that. Like I think we did that well enough.
Who I think Victor Drago can keep coming back. Like I think
I'm cool with him. Again, I don't mind these characters continuing to pop up. I like at the beginning of this movie, it's him retiring after he beats Pretty Ricky Conlon, like for the title, and then retires, like, and then we kind of jump forward a little bit. Like I like the fact that he gets his redemption on Pretty Ricky because he never beat him in that original movie, and he beats him this time. So like I like that. I don't mind them bringing back the previous fighters and things like that. I just don't want to see like son of Clubber, getting in the ring, like, and I don't even mind if they bring back Dame to be a background character of the next one. Like if we see a little bit of Jonathan
Spider Rico,
if we see a little bit of Jonathan Majors in the next one, maybe not even as a main character, but a little bit of where he is. Maybe he jumps back into the fighting. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Because they kind of leave that a little bit up in the air at the end of that movie. With him, he kind of got his shot and he got the championship, and now he's, we don't know where he's going to go from here. And now he lost to Adonis, so I don't know. You could have a little bit of follow up to that, but yeah, I don't know where they go with Creed 4, but I'd be interested. I didn't know where they were going to go with Creed 3, to be honest, when they said they were going to do that one.
Yeah, because it does kind of end with him just walking away.
Yeah.
So I mean, if this is where it ends with Creed, then I think it's a good way to end it. If they keep going, it's like, let's keep going as long as they're cranking out quality, which I think only, in my opinion, Rocky 4. Which I mean, there's still good things about the original Rocky 4.
Yeah,
I think everything has been at least good.
I mean, I'm positive on all these movies. It's one of my favorite franchises. I don't hate any one of these movies. I think they're all good. They're all at least good to great for me. Even the lowest of the series for me, stuff like Rocky 5 or even somewhat Creed 3 are still very good movies. Like again, I'll watch Creed 3 again, several more times. Like I will have no problem popping on this movie. It's very breezy to watch. It's very entertaining. Again, I like a lot of the character moments of this movie. It's just, to me, when I'm looking at the Creed movies as a whole, it's kind of my least favorite of that. If I was to rank the Rocky movies as a whole, it'd probably be somewhere in the middle or lower middle, just for me personally, just because I connect with the Rocky character a little more than Adonis Johnson, but I'm also a straight white dude. So like, it is what it is, like I'm just being honest. So like, I don't have a juvenile background or anything like that, so it's not the thing I'm most going to connect with. But I think these movies are all good. and I love this franchise as a whole. There's some great stories in here. Each one is different from the next. I don't think there's a single one that's exactly like one of the other movies. They all do something different. They all do something fresh. There's fun characters throughout this whole thing. If you watch them all in a row, there's great callbacks to previous movies and previous characters. Again, there was even a scene cut out of Creed 2, if you go into the lead scenes, where Rocky goes to the funeral of Spider Rico. There's a Spider Rico funeral where he dies off screen, and goes to his funeral, and he breaks down a little bit because he goes to the funeral, and the only people at the funeral are him and the other cooks at the funeral, like the cooks from the restaurant. And he's having this thing where it's almost like the reverse of Rocky, where like if Rocky had never gotten the title shot, he might have ended up like Spider Rico, just kind of this penniless former boxer, with nobody, no family, no friend, not many friends, and have died. And he talks about that in the funeral speech. And it's kind of it doesn't really flesh with the rest of the movie, which is why they cut it out. But again, another really interesting scene that I think if you go back on the Blu-ray and watch it, Jacob, it's a cool just characters thing, because you can see the parallels with Rocky, and him realizing Spider is kind of the opposite, or what he would have been had he not gotten that opportunity with Apollo. You know what I mean? He could have been like Spider, just wandering the earth, and dies a penniless, broke, punchy boxer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting. So there's good stuff in the series, man. Every character kind of gets their moments to shine, and they're all really good. So yeah, I like these movies a lot, man. I'm a big fan of this franchise. This has been a fun discussion, man. I like talking about all these movies in line. It's really good.
Yeah, and I know we don't rank them, but if you had to do a top 3,
yeah,
what would your top 3 be?
I know me and Henry kind of ranked them on one show. I'm trying to remember what I said for that one. I think overall, the one I've watched the most, and the one I could just put on any time, is Rocky 3. I know that's kind of an unconventional pick, but I love Rocky 3. Like, I think Rocky 3 is fun, but I think there's really good dramatic stuff in Rocky 3 that break it down is really good. I really like the Rocky 4 director's cut. I've become a big fan of it. I love that movie, and I like what they do with that. And I'm just a fan of Rocky 4 in general, but like if I had to pick one of the two, I'd do the director's cut. And then I go Creed 2. Creed 2 is probably my third favorite. I love Creed 2. I think Creed 2 is great. Love the dynamic with the Drago stuff. And then if I was to go on from there, like from the top 3 off the top of my head, I think it goes like after that Rocky 2, the original Rocky. Again, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just one of the ones I've seen the least. I don't go back and watch the original Rocky a lot because it's more of a dramatic movie that's not as breezy to like put on, you know what I mean? And just flow through and pop in and out of. But it's a fantastic movie, don't get me wrong. Just my personal favorites, it's kind of in the middle. I go that, Creed, probably Creed 3, Rocky 5, something like that.
Okay.
I was just spitballing off the top of my head. Yeah, something like that.
Jordan shared his earlier too. He goes Rocky 2, Creed 3, Rocky,
Creed,
Rocky 4, Rocky Balboa, Rocky.
I forgot Rocky Balboa. I put Rocky Balboa right below Creed 2. Yeah, it's probably 4th or 5th best, like right in the middle, something like that. Yeah, I like Rocky Balboa a lot too. Yeah, it's a good movie. So yeah.
So for myself, I would go the original Rocky. I think it's probably my favorite so far.
But again, I grew up watching these movies on cable, and Rocky 3 and 4 came on a lot, so they're just like burned into my brain. I could recite those movies top to bottom. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Some of these have gone up on the rewatch, so I wouldn't be surprised if this list changes. But as of right now, it would be Rocky, Creed, Rocky 2, Creed 2. Then I have Creed 3, Rocky Balboa, Rocky 3. I have the director's cut, and then of Rocky 4, and then Rocky 5, followed by Rocky 4. Because I do think, because I do think they're two different movies. I mean, sure, they end the same way, but I think they're different movies. So I do like to rank those separately.
Sure.
But yeah, again, we don't really rank them as we're talking about them, but I do think, obviously, we like to rank things.
Yeah,
we like to talk about them in order.
Well, and speaking of director's cuts, there's a John G. Avildsen, who came back and directed the 5th one, because obviously he directed the original, has kind of an unofficial director's cut of Rocky 5 online somewhere. I have not seen it, where he added in some other footage and re-edited some of the music and things like that I'm interested to see. That's another one where I'd like to see a Rocky 5 kind of alternate cut. Maybe it's a little again, that maybe smooths over some of the transition and some of the character stuff, in that movie, and then it could jump again, much like the Rocky Four. So, yeah, I like to see that, and that comes to my beef with the most recent 4K set that came out of some of the Rocky movies. They just put out a 4K set, but it only includes Rocky 1 through 4 and the director's cut of Rocky 4, and then it stops, which to me is odd. I don't understand why you wouldn't include at least up until Rocky Balboa with that set. That's really weird to me, and that's the reason it's. If you look it up on Amazon, it's gotten downvoted to shit. It's like 2 out of 5 stars or something on Amazon because people are like, "Why would you just stop with 4? Why don't you at least include 5 and 6?" Like I understand not including the Creed movies because it's kind of their own thing. Like, I mean, I would like to see a big giant box set of all of them, but at least include Rocky 1 through 6, at least as like the Rocky movies. Like, why would you not include those? Because that's why I'm not going to buy it just yet. I'm just going to wait for a bigger.
The Blu-ray set I have has all 6, so I don't know why they.
Yeah. And the only reason I was tempted is because that new Rocky set has a physical copy of the Rocky 4 director's cut included. It has both cuts, and again, I'll give Stallone props for this. He's not erasing the original theatrical cut for anybody who likes that. He just did this new cut and said, I just am passionate about this. I made my own cut of it. You know what I mean? So he's not trying to erase it. Like, it's not out of history. He's just saying, hey, here's an alternate cut if you'd like to check it out. So I at least appreciate that. It's not like George Lucas where he's like, no, I made a new cut and I'm going to erase all the other cuts and you can't watch any of the other ones. It's like the E.T. special edition that Spielberg did with the CGI. But if you buy the box set, it has both versions. The new CGI version and the old version. At least give me the option. At least just give me the option.
Right.
So, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this has been fun.
We went the length of a franchise. We went the length of a Creed movie.
Yeah.
All right. Nice.
Glad we started a little bit earlier because you would be late for ranking.
I was just worried about. Yeah, I figured this would happen, which is why I wanted to go earlier. I don't want to be late for Rankum tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can catch us back on Saturday when we will be talking about the Sean Connery Bond. I've been kind of starting to go through the James Bond movies because I haven't seen all of them. I've seen like 5 or 6 of them. So it's going to be fun going through these. So that's what we'll be doing this upcoming Saturday. Austin, you got anything going on this week?
No, I mean, like I said, I'll be on Rankum literally later tonight, or if you're catching this on the replay, go to Take 3 Productions and check out Rankum. I'll be talking top 12 horror performances that should have been nominated for an Oscar. So that should be a fun topic that I'm very passionate about because horror does not get enough legitimate credit, in some of the award circles and things like that. And there's plenty of amazing performances in horror movies, just acting performances that deserve to be have recognition alongside the dramatic ones. So we'll be talking about that, something I'm passionate about. I mean, mostly right here on the Movie Hero Network. I know I'll have a Battleground match dropping soon, maybe by next week. So maybe by next week I'll be able to plug that as well. And yeah, we just got everything we got on the Movie Hero: Tournament Fights, Tier Rank Fights, and Lonely Marks coming up this week. So Lonely Marks. We will be back hopefully this Thursday. We don't know yet the specific date or time. Yeah,
we will be back this week with Lonely Marks. We'll be doing a tier ranking of the main events, so you guys can watch out for that. And yeah, since we don't always go live at the same time, hit the bell, and so you'll be notified when we are going live with these shows. Like Austin said, tier ranker, tournament fights, lots of good stuff coming this week. So once again, thank you guys for watching.
Well, and I just want to say the show after that, after we do a comedy, 2 weeks after that, we'll be doing a tie-in with WrestleMania for movies. We might be talking about wrestling in movies, kind of like Rocky 3. Kind of like Rocky 3 has some wrestling within a movie. We might be talking about wrestling scenes or wrestling movies, in the world of Hollywood and how they treat wrestling. So maybe we'll just come up with a list of things we want to talk about and scenes we want to talk about. Might even share those with each other beforehand just so we can watch those scenes individually and then talk about them one by one. So we'll tie in a little WrestleMania even here on podcasts about movies with how they treat pro wrestling in movies, because I got some things to say about how they treat pro wrestling in movies. So sometimes good, sometimes bad. So
so that'll be fun. So this has been fun. Thank you guys for watching. That has been Austin. I am Jacob, and we will see you next time.